Okay, folks, here we go.
Guys, here we go. Let's have a good show.
1B, stand by. Okay,
Yeah.
Yacht,
Yeah,
take it.
take it at midfield.
Okay,
Just go
take
right
it.
now.
Okay,
Go to camera 3. 3. Go to the game. Perfect. Just like that.
I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, graphics 2 is going to be up for the first. Okay.
Take it.
Go right now. Go to camera 3. Go. Yep. Go to the game. Perfect. Just like that. No music.
I'm going to hand to Q, Sophie.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it.
On radio in the Canal Zone.
All right, guys, mic check.
Yep, go ready.
Okay, Ricky, mic.
Yep, I am ready.
Wait for it. Wait for it. 2.5.
Willie, mic check.
Yep, let's go.
1B, stand by.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Okay, and go for it, guys.
Okay, here we go. Now for real. The last one was a do-over, right?
That
The
was
last one
for
was
real.
just
But
kidding.
Willie, I swear to God, as always with our show, maybe tonight we won't say the word CHINO.
Maybe that could be it. It could be it. It's a sabotage. That's exactly what it is.
Sabotaging our show,
Well,
Willie.
the last few shows have been actually the last few months have been kind of brutal on that side. So it could be it. But nonetheless, that's
Let's get
that's for
this
the
show
Tin
on
Hat
the road.
show. That's another show. That's not tonight's show. But here we are, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific time. We're a little later than that, right? And as we also say now, 7 p.m. Canal Zone time. So
That's
happy
correct.
out at the Balboa Yacht Club. Ricky, what's going on, man? Happy Friday.
Hey guys, like always, we like to welcome you, Willie and I, both born and raised in the Canal Zone, aka Zonians, and we just want to welcome you every week to the happy hour at the Balboa Yacht Club, which is a podcast that is completely and dedicated to the Panama Canal and the Canal Zone way of life.
That's right.
And it's a podcast that always, and I mean always, starts with the toast to all the viewers,
Salute.
to all the Zonians, the non-Zonians, the
Yes.
historians,
Salute.
really to the French newspaper people that are going to be watching tonight.
Yeah,
Hello,
that's right.
and welcome.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a interesting requests, I guess, that came through Thane, actually, Thane Wheeler with the Canal Zone documentary, part of the Canal Zone community, canalzone.me group, that mentioned that somebody had reached out to him that was a liaison in Panama for some French journalists that wanted to talk to some Zonians. So, by the way, Zonians, if you're listening in Panama, Alex, I guess, ball's back in your court, and here it goes. Get in touch with Alex Reyes, man, because they're looking for somebody, a couple of people to talk to Zonians. They want to talk to you about the whole Zonian thing, what went on, what happened, what's going on, your thoughts, I guess. I'm not sure, in all honesty. But they're leaving Thursday back to France, so it's got to be done in the next, 5-6 days. So reach out to Alex because they're in Panama. They want to talk to a few people in Panama and have a sit down, talk lunch or whatever, and chat about the Zonian experience, I guess.
Chili MacArthur's there right now. He would be a
right. As a matter of fact, there you go.
Yes, sir. We got to make sure we hook him up with Alex. Hey, guys. Well, anyway, thanks again for joining us. And I'm both very, 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 very happy to do this every Friday. And tonight, we got a pretty good show lined up for you guys. Willie has put together quite the show. But before we get the show started, we have a tribute to a very, very, very special Zonian that is now paying for the big guy upstairs.
Yeah, indeed. It was somebody that was a guest on our show about 6 or 7, 8 months ago now. And we had a lot of fun talking to Al Sprague, but this is somebody that's a gem of the Canal Zone community, right? This is somebody that is revered by the Canal Zone community. He's done so much and not just the Canal Zone community. I made me a little selfish there. It really is for Panama. This guy really is somebody that brought Panama to the world, through the paintbrush and whatnot. And he was a Zonian that many people loved. I mean, the amount of messages that you're seeing across social media are amazing, from official organizations, and then from of course the many Zonians and Panamanians and Americans that had the privilege of meeting him and knowing him, and fortunate that we were able to have him on our show and chat with us. That was an amazing story. I've always
Honored.
chatted about
Honored.
that and loved that and everything. But nonetheless, here's just a little tribute to Al Sprague, and thank you for being an amazing Zonian, and Godspeed to you.
Well, I guess I was a pain in the ass. They didn't, and I just was too hyper. I was just, wow, let's do it, And I always like making things, and I go out back and I build a log cabin out of broken branches or something like that. I just always had a. Well, another thing is I grew up down at the docks fishing. We didn't have a boat, so we caught our fish off the pier. And I used to go to La Boca when La Boca was a Jamaican town. And
Okay.
I had friends there, and we go fish. Some of those guys,
Right.
And I was like 11 or 12. I go down there at night and fish all night with them. They wouldn't even bother me. They were good friends of mine, And my mom said, just make good grades and get that degree in art, So anyway, I would take a buddy with me and we go drinking, man. We drink ourselves sick, And it was raining like hell. And this blackbird landed on the pipe railing with one leg. I said, look, Cass, that blackbird have one leg. He said, no, he have two, man. I said, what do you mean? He said, he have two. He have two legs. Watch. Put the other leg down. And that blackbird put his other leg down. Who the hell are you, man?
Yeah, some black magic there.
Yeah, black magic, man. But he was a good fisherman. And we'd row to the other side of the canal and get sea worm. Put the wire down there and put up a big 9-foot sea worm, man. Then we'd go over to the buoys and we'd anchor or tie up and we'd catch fish one after bicycles. And we went up to the top of Sosa Hill and we rode our bicycles. There was a guy, I'm not going to mention names, but we went up to Sosa Hill, the top, and we're coming down with our brakes, going to have a race. Have you ever been up there?
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah.
It was like straight.
Heck yeah, it was.
This guy, I'll call him Johnny.
Yeah, rest in peace, Al. An amazing Zonian. Just made such a difference to Panama in a different
Iconic.
way. Just a great Zonian. So, but anyway,
we're pretty fortunate, Willie, that we're probably one of the last interviews he did on our show. Willie,
yeah,
do you remember?
I mean, if you missed it, if you've somebody that's tuned into our show in the last 6 months or whatever, go to our YouTube channel. We have all the shows on it. Click on the live. Go to our channel. It's the @ at SCN Canal Zone. YouTube.com/@SCN Canal Zone, and hit the live button there, or the live link, or whatever it is, and it has all of our shows there. And that's one of the shows that's listed on there with Al Sprague and Cassie Sprague. It was a lot of fun. Listen, it was almost 3 hours. It was
3 hours
really,
plus.
really great time.
It was over 3 hours.
It was just so much fun to talk to him because
We just
it
let
was
him
a different
talk.
side. It wasn't so much Al the artist. It was Al the Zonian, right?
Al the Zonian. Yeah, and if you want to know some Zonian travesura, if you want to know some Zonian travesura, you got to watch that show because those guys participated in some incredible travesuras.
Yeah. So anyway, let's say hello to some of our friends out there. Buggo20, Mark Owens, good to see you. Hello, happy Friday to you from the Atlantic side. Leaf Solene, Leaf I know is down in Panama, I think, and I think he's still down there.
Right on, Leaf.
Having a good time down in Pans. Yeah, Rich, it was very strange. All of a sudden, the show said it was launching and it kept initializing, and then all of a sudden, Ricky has it on the background and back of his TV there. And next thing you know, we see the show on, but on our screens here, it's saying it's initializing. It hasn't launched yet. And And we're like, well, wait a minute, I think we are on the air. So, and then all of a sudden everything kind of glitched out and started over. So here we are nonetheless. But yeah, good to see you, Rich. And of course, Ricky, your
Hey, Raina.
sister, always saying hello to us from somewhere in the world here. But good to see you, Raina.
Raina, I lost. I got rid of the earphones, like you said.
Yep, there you go.
Sounds a lot better.
Our,
Go
our,
ahead,
our,
Mark.
other, our assistant executive producer, Rain Arroyo, always helping out in the background there. So thank you, appreciate the assist there. And then Mark, happy,
Good
yeah,
evening,
yeah,
Mark
of course.
Cicero.
It's always a good time at the yacht club. It's a great place to be at. Absolutely, it's always a happy time there. And Mark has graciously offered to help me do some studio songs for the show. So that's going to be cool because obviously we've seen the one that we play a lot, Panama Days, but he's got a lot of other cool tunes there to check out. You know, Mark Cicero CZ. Remember, don't forget to add the CC because there's that other Mark Cicero, whoever that is. But nonetheless, the one that we want to find out with has that CZ on the end. So check him out there. Vern, good to see you. Don't think your Facebook feed is working. Was on it. Yeah, they were. Let me double check one more time, but I do believe it is working. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, there was a bit of a glitch, like I said earlier. So this is probably a previous comment that came on there. Yeah, indeed, he's already missed. He's just a great guy. That was, that was the first time that I ever talked to Al Sprague, person to person. It was, I obviously, like everybody else, I knew Al Sprague from who he is in the Canal Zone, and of course, Cassie and I went to school since way back when. But that was really the first time, and so, I, other than looking at him from that artist standpoint, my real first impression of Al Sprague dealing with him is something that was just a really cool Zonian, and
Yeah.
and just did the same things we did and just took it up a couple of levels in a few
Way
instances.
before us.
Yeah.
You know what? He graduated with my father, class of '55. I believe that's what he told us. Class of '55. Yes.
Yeah,
So
I
my-
believe you're right. I believe you're right. Yeah, that was a really fun interview. It was.
hanging out with his brothers now.
I mean, he hung in there, man, till just about the very end during that interview. It was a lot of fun. It was a really cool, fun side of Al Sprague, and it's really fitting for somebody that's a painter. That I think it's fitting that this guy was somebody that just lived life to the fullest, and then he later on he told the same story but through a paintbrush, and he showcased not just Panama. I mean, a lot of it was Panama, we know there, but this guy painted a lot of New Orleans, where he lived for many years in that area there.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Duper, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Absolutely. Happy Friday. Salute. We'll drink to that one. Mm-hmm. But yeah,
Thanks, guys.
he also painted a lot of military. He honored the military a lot, and there's some really, really cool paintings that he had there. And so, there was a lot of other views there. In Panama alone, he had a lot of different really popular segments. Obviously fishing was a huge part of his life, so he did a lot of that. The polleras were just a really, really big part of his legacy. I mean, the pollera's probably going to be the one that, a little bit of mute there would help, Papa. But the polleras was something that even just recently Cassie had posted on some new options to choose from as far as choosing a new pollera artwork and whatnot. But just really, really amazing stuff there. The guys doing the raspados and all the vendors were some really cool ones there again. And certainly one that Ricky loves and appreciates was the Zonian architecture and a lot of the buildings, the concrete buildings and stuff like that. So this guy really captured, and then of course the Panama Canal, right? And we know that postage stamp that was, modeled after, one of his iconic, images of that mule coming up the hill or down the hill. We're not sure which it was with the ship. I guess it's down the hill because it was the nose of the ship, right? So it would be leaving the locks, I guess, at that point. But really, really iconic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, what a great artist, and somebody
What a great artist,
tremendously missed, and we're fortunate that he was a Canal Zone and a Panama artist, and that was something else we were blessed with as being Zonian. So God bless you up there. Say hello to all of our friends and families up there, and
thank you, Lord, for letting us have them for as long as you did.
Indeed. So, but a couple more hellos there, and then we'll move right along here. We've got some people that are on standby here in the on deck circle, I guess you could call it, right? So yeah, what's up, Dodd? Thank you so much for the pintas. Appreciate you, brother. Happy Friday. Let me see here. Is your EV Mux working? It is now. It wasn't earlier, but it is now. Leaf, what day was this Alice Break show last? I believe it was sometime in September. I don't have it on up right now, and I don't want to pull it down because it messes with my bandwidth. So, but I'll post a link for it later on when we get done here, or we'll while we have something else on here, I'll throw it up there. But okay, so Raiden says he was class of '56. All right, close enough.
56.
Yep, right on. And Jim Bradley, good to see you. Welcome. Hope you all mentioned. Yes, absolutely. We just did again. We just missed it, but just played a tribute. I'll play it again later on, and I'll post it on our Facebook page. In fact, I'll go ahead and do that here in just a moment on our SCN Canal Zone page, so we can share it out there. Really close your window. Close. I know, right? Listen, these guys in San Francisco, man, they don't get AC, man, so they gotta have them open.
Sure, my neighborhood
You know?
never fails. Friday at what time is it, Willie? 5:30. There's always a fire, like
Incredible.
clockwork.
Yep, every time. Every time.
I got the stations. Well, in San Francisco, you have basically a station in every neighborhood. So like every 10 blocks, there's a station.
There you go. Well,
So-
that's a big city, man. I mean, San Francisco's a huge city, so it's
7 miles by 7 miles.
and it's an old city, so you tend to have those things in an older city anyhow.
Oh, we're all like this. We're like
Right.
right next to each
Right.
other. We don't have much room in between.
Yep. So
What they call setback, right? 5 feet.
right, yeah, yep. So look at Mark posting on your Al Sprague and my dad were friends from a young man. I've started to write. Oh, awesome, dude. That's cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing it. I'm sure it will be worthy, and I'm sure your dad is showing Al around since he just
All the
went up there
boys.
recently. So they're all welcoming him there, and obviously there's
Yeah.
a big Zonian gang up there and a big Panamanian gang that's
Oh
gonna
God! What?
welcome them all
Yeah.
there, of course.
Yeah.
Lewis from Delaware, including Scotland. Okay, right on. Okay, big crowd up there in Delaware. Excellent. So familia's up in Delaware. Good to see you guys up there.
See,
Safe
cheers,
travels to everybody.
Cheers.
The Benninghoff Lindgren Horseman gathering up in Delaware. Right on. Enjoy. John Hewsome, good evening. Happy Friday to you, my friend. All right.
John, good to see you.
All right. So anyhow, so let's go ahead and move along then, guys. Happy Friday to everybody. We're going to bring on here. We have a new segment that's getting ready to come on here called a Sabor Patrol. Okay. And what we're talking about here is some grub, some Panama grub, some CZ grub, you could call it. And it's going to be a really, really fun show, a really fun segment here that we're looking forward to with our friend Jason Curtides and one of his sidekicks, Jack Whitlock. Matt Tomlin will be joining it on occasion as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But he's going to join us here for a couple of minutes to just kind of talk about what this show's all about and again, what to look forward to here with Sabor Patrol. So check it out, guys.
We're on the way to get some food. We're on the way to get some food. All right, we're gonna go get some food. This time we're going to have Korean. We got special guests back there.
Your window Sasso in the house.
We got
There
the
you go. So that's a little teaser of what you guys are going to have in store here. So Jason, welcome to Happy at the Balboa Yacht Club as our newest segment coming up here, man. You there, my friend?
Oh, I think let's make sure.
Okay, no, his audio's not on. I'm not hearing any audio. He is talking though, so he's semi-connected here. But yeah, he's going to be bringing. For those of you who don't know, as soon as he starts talking, we'll know that his mic is working. Check your mic connection there, Jason. Jason is quite the foodie, guys. If you don't know Jason or if you don't follow him on Instagram, he's got quite the food love and passion, I guess, huh?
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
So I mean, he posts stuff all the time. He's quite the cook. I mean, he cooks a lot of good food. It's and so he likes food and he likes Panama food. He's been living in Panama his whole life, and so he figured, what the heck, man? Let me throw some Panama stuff out there, and we're gonna make it a segment that comes on about once a month or so, and they're gonna be these short 5 or 6 minute segments that are basically showcasing a food joint down in Panama. The one that we just saw is part of that intro. There is a Korean joint. It's called Korean Time, and it's actually at the old La Boca gas station, right at the beginning
Yeah.
of it there.
Where the Boy Scouts used to meet.
Correct. Jason, you there, man? Any luck? Still got no mic there.
We got no mic.
But well, nonetheless, it's we'll get it figured out here. Let me see here. We got some chat. See if anybody, just in case someone's hearing it, we can't. Yeah, they can't hear him. Yeah, no worries. We'll get it figured out, and we'll definitely bring him back because, like I said, guys, this is going to be a really, really fun show talking about food joints in Panama. It's and like Jason will be the first to tell you, it's not an Anthony Bourdain. It's not one of these,
I like to call him Anthony Bourdain.
It's more about, hey guys, this is a good place to get some food, get some good grub. And so, especially come January, when a lot of Zonians seem to migrate down to Panama now for these Canals on reunions, which, by the way, 5th anniversary reunion is coming up this time. They just threw out a new logo and stuff. In fact, I'll try and pull it up here when I get a chance. But that's going to be a good opportunity then to go and get yourself, something good to eat down in Pans. And for those of you like myself that hasn't been down there in a long time, check out these segments coming up, and they'll all, of course, be on his Instagram channel as well, and they'll always be on our SCN Canal Zone. But figure out some good places to eat and figure out what's being served out there. Like I said, there's some Korean food right there at the La Boca gas station. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that show and what's up there, especially even with that Korean one. He's got that one. I know he also has what was the other one that we did the other day that we just finished editing? Off the top of my head, it's in Casco Viejo. But which, by the way, during filming of that, did you see the video that he sent there, Ricky, the raw video before we fooled around with it? All right, there was a sign on a building that he drove by, and it said Cafe Coca-Cola. Did you see that during the video as you're driving through Casco Viejo? Do you know what that means?
The new U.S. ambassador. That was his first stop.
Right, but do you know the meaning of that sign and why it's so important and what's so unique about it?
It's because it was made before Coca-Cola trademarked the name.
Yeah, not so much before they trademarked it, but when Coca-Cola first came out, Cafe Coca-Cola was the first place to serve Coca-Cola outside of the United States.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, got it.
And so to show their gratitude, they said, you guys can use our name, but nobody else. And so legally to this point, and imagine how long Coca-Cola's been around. That's how long that cafe has been around. There's a lot of famous paintings of it and pictures, and it's one of those places that I guess for Panamanians, it would be the equivalent of maybe like the clubhouse for us Zonians back in the day. That was the place to go, was Cafe Coca-Cola.
I also understand Coca-Cola's top CEOs make it. It's like a tribute. They always go there.
It is because, again, think of Coca-Cola. This is a global brand, right? And it was funny because when I saw that picture, I decided to go and I knew the history of Cafe Coca-Cola, but I didn't know the details about it. Being the first one out there, and the first one to serve Coca-Cola. So of course I started doing a little research on it, and I mean Coca-Cola just really, really smart people. When they first really started to grow, they convinced the United States government to help in opening bottling plants in order to do this. And that's why, if you understand, and I worked for Coca-Cola many years ago, so the business model is interesting. The actual Coca-Cola company does not make the soda, does not have anything to do with that, except they own the formula and they own the rights to it and the marketing arm. And that's where they make their money. You have a bunch of distributors all over the country, and those are the people that actually pay Coca-Cola for the rights to use the name and manufacture the soda. To, of course, strict, restrictions and whatnot and specifications, but they're the ones that put it out there. So back in the day when they did that, they convinced the United States to hold on, let me double check.
I think we got Jason back.
Yeah, Jason, is your mic good?
Yeah, good to go, bro.
Okay, cool. Well, let's do this, guys. We got him back on there. We'll let him do the chatting on there. Well, it could be.
We could have.
It's certainly
We've been
possible.
we've been running trying to fix things by pressing every button.
And here's,
That's how we normally fix things.
Here we're talking to Jason Warren and nobody else can hear him. It's funny, but let me get him into the studio here, and then we'll kick it off. And hey, listen, this is typical for us to do this. It's par for the course for us. But anyway, Jason, so welcome to the show now, man. Good to see you.
Hi, everybody. Going.
All right, here we go. So like I was saying, this whole idea came about because you post a lot of food pictures. Your Instagram is food dish after food dish after food dish. Now, most of them aren't restaurant. Most of them are actually stuff that you cook, correct?
Yeah, I cook, but I mean, I'm not a chef.
Well, you
I
might
cook,
as well be. You
like,
cook enough, though. I mean, the things that I see on there
When I
cook,
was
you
a
know
kid,
how to
I
cook.
considered going down that like career path, going to culinary school and all that. But I worked in a chow hall in Fort Clayton as an army cook, a civilian army cook.
Right.
And I realized back then that cooking when you want to cook is fun, but cooking when you don't want to cook, it ain't no fun and a lot of work.
Couldn't agree with
So
you
I
more.
went into a completely different field when I enlisted.
Yeah, see, I actually went to culinary school, and I realized, okay, I love doing this, but I didn't want to work for somebody. I wanted to own a restaurant, which means I'd have to be there 7 days a week, 10, 15 hours a day. And at that point, like you said, it's when you have to do it.
It's your work day. You got to come in at 4 in the morning, all that stuff.
You got it. So at that point, I was like, no, you know what? I'm out. So I did a year and a half, and then I was like, nope, I'm out. But so then shifting gears now, you obviously you enjoy food, you like food, and of course, you don't only cook it. You obviously like to go out and enjoy the culinary treats in Panama. So
when we were talking initially about this, I told you I don't want to do like a Bourdain show, but I do like his style. I like that he gets in the street and he tries all these different things. In fact, he's one of the few shows that were done on Panama that I thought, that's pretty good. A lot of times you see like short documentaries or whatever movies done here, and you're like, Jesus Christ, man, they missed the whole thing. They missed the whole vibe here, but he got it right. So all I want to do, I think would be fun for people without boring the bejesus out of them, is just do some street food and fonda and things that people remember from growing up down here. I always bring up like carne palitos, right?
Yeah, of course.
What could be better than walking out of the yacht club? This is like around the late 80s and 90s, and those carne palitos. Those things were insane,
They were. It was. Those were 5-star,
it's
man.
It's going to be a lot of that.
Man, they just had that perfect texture to them.
A lot of food joints like dives and stuff like that. And every now and then a restaurant, because believe it or not, around the Canal Zone, what used to be the Canal Zone is 1 or 2 places that are worth a visit. And most Zonians that come back want to run around the Canal Zone. Occasionally pop into Panama and the Casco Viejo area. But there's actually some good eats in the Chorrillo. And Chorrillo, believe it or not, Santa Ana, you were talking about that Coca-Cola Cafe?
Yeah.
That's pretty good, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going to be me, acompañado by Jack, because I need his help with the Spanish.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yeah.
and if through you guys, anybody gets some ideas, like there's a place they want to see that they remember, that they heard about, contact you guys, and you guys hit me up, and then we'll go out and search it out. We'll go on patrol.
Perfect. No, absolutely. And again, look Jason up on Instagram, because he's got a ton of food pictures there. Really good stuff there, and follow him there as well, and get turn on there and yeah, man, there's a lot of cool eateries out there. So you mentioned then that there a lot of Zonians, when we go down there, especially like come January, that Canal Zone reunion, and they want to hang around the zone. So how many eateries roughly are there in what we would consider the zone area that you could say, hey, there's plenty to eat here?
Quite a few. Like jokingly, we used to say you could do a food safari in Albrook. Albrook's got all kinds of, just Albrook alone, man. You got arepas, you got good tacos, like legitimate people that know Mexican food say, no, those are pretty legit. You got West Indian food. You got like 3 or 4 different Chinese restaurants. And there's much more just in Albrook. So This is what's funny about this is a long time ago over drinks, me and Dupree were joking that we want to do a podcast for food, but now the guy lives up in Tampa. He's probably
Right.
watching here.
Yeah, hell he is. He
I
bought us a
he's
couple
always
beers
here.
just a little
more
while ago.
reliable, closer
We
by,
love him.
you know.
Yeah, no, indeed. And you know, it's what everybody's doing now, and it's easy. I mean, look how quickly you got gear that you know to walk around and film and everything, and it's amazing how quickly.
No,
you can
that's
throw
daunting.
something-
That's the one thing is handling the camera. You guys have been like super helpful because editing it's a pain, and
is.
you did all the editing. I want people to know you get the credit for that. I just got the equipment and went downtown with my boys Jack, Wendell the other day, and we tried the food out. We try to get the shots, but a lot of the editing is, of course, you up there. It's fun, man. I just want to have fun with this. And
It is. And you know what? You can see that people in the restaurants have fun with it. When you guys were at the other place down in Naries, right? And you walk by and the lady, hola, you know, and it, you know, at this point, I think in 2025, it's not a stretch to have somebody coming by with a camera and talking, you know, and so they're like, hey, what's up, man? You know?
In all seriousness, if you look on Instagram, there's some really good food blogs, like
Yes.
really well edited, good food. There's so much. The one thing the pandemic did for Panama was the food scene here is really good now. It's gotten way better. Like your takeout options or your delivery options are just nuts now, man.
So what are the delivery options for somebody that'll be going down there in about 6 months and can start kind of planning ahead and knowing what
Napoli's delivers
That's a
that?
big step. They didn't deliver for forever, you know.
forever. Yeah, I know they started delivering. I think that's beautiful.
Well, I didn't realize until recently that they had a
Barista got
place in
on
El
that.
Dorado or in Obarrio or something.
Nah, that's not the same. The real Naps is
That's
the
what I
one
mean,
in
but I didn't know that they
Santana,
had
right
moved
by
to another
K
one, is what I'm
Street.
saying.
And people call it dirty naps and clean naps. That's ridiculous. There's naps. That's it.
Yeah, I don't get that whole Dirty
Restaurante.
Naps name.
Restaurante is the
I
one
know
in
the dirty
Obarrio.
naps. I think because we understand the dirty naps.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the best one.
Listen, we were talking about enjoying carne en palito, man. So there's no way that you can ever be worried about a dirty naps or anything.
yeah.
man.
No, I know.
Okay.
But that's just what they call it and kind
That's
of
the
stuff.
neighborhood, but the food, the sauce, and everything is so much better down there.
Oh yeah,
Right.
down there's more.
Too.
Yeah. You know, I've eaten at both, and they're both just spectacular.
So now tell us about this Korean time place, which is going to be one of the first ones we'll
that's
put
a
out
big
there.
Surprise that one because
Yeah.
you know what, Balboa has a problem with the food scene, and that restaurants open up and they just struggle there, man.
Really?
Chinese restaurant opened up at the old internet. That Chase, the Citibank was right across from the Balboa post office.
Yeah.
Shut
Oh,
down
yeah,
for
okay.
a number of reasons, but the Korean place, good system, man. It's quick, it's fresh, the food is great, it's airy. There's no flies all over the place.
Right on.
And the food,
How about Nico's at the old bowling alley? Is that still there?
yeah, they're still there. And they're pretty solid too. And
Yeah.
you can get good Tipico food, or you can get, it's almost like clubhouse type of eating. You get in the line,
Correct.
go down the serving line, and it's good from like a historical point of view because they have all those old photographs that you don't see anywhere else but there, you know?
Right.
Yep.
It's kind of a tribute to the old Canal Zone, believe it or not.
Okay. Right on. And then the Causeway, of course, has a lot of stuff out there, right, at the islands.
Oh, they got some good cevicherias out there. That's one thing. They got some good restaurants too, but one of my favorite cevicherias is out there. And open air, it's nice. It's
So cevicheria, that means what? They have
really
a lot
good.
of different types of ceviche they're serving?
Cevicheria.
I mean, ceviche's gone off
Parking.
the hook here
Yeah.
too. Like,
How's parking out there?
it's all right. It's all right. Weekends it can be kind of tough, but during the week it's okay.
Yeah.
But you know, the Causeway is not the chill out atmosphere it used to be.
No,
like,
certainly not. You can see
Causeway
from
is
the
like a
pictures.
scene
It's
out
like
there
a damn highway.
traffic and everything.
Yeah. But now going back to the cevicheria, that's what, a bunch of different kinds of ceviche?
Dude, all kinds. There's a place I go into Panama City that are these young kids, Panamanian, Venezuelan, and they got together, and it's a cevicheria. It's a form of art, man. It's just beautiful. And they have like 3-level, like the ceviches are different colors because they're different densities.
Yeah,
and
okay.
it just looks beautiful. And they got the frituras along with it. It's nuts. Now, you got to go in the city for that.
So now, is that a
parking's
Panama
real
thing,
bear, but you know
cevicheria?
what? Here you got Uber. You go anywhere with Uber. It's so
Yeah.
cheap, it's ridiculous.
That's what everybody says. Like when we had Alex on talking about the reunion, he said, forget about taxis, guys.
I don't
Uber
even
is
drive in the city anymore. If I got to go in the city, I take an Uber. No parking problem. Like, get out of the car and that's it.
wow.
It's
Look
cheap.
at you, right on, right on. And now this whole concept cevicheria, is that a Panama thing or is that a Latin America thing, or because I've never heard of that? That's the
Panama
first
has
I've
a
ever heard of it.
tradition in ceviche,
Yeah.
but they say the original ceviche is Peruvian.
Yes.
And
correct.
I like their ceviche because that's on a whole nother level. The way we have ceviche here is like a hot afternoon snack or an appetizer, a cold beer and a ceviche, and it's good. It's good for sure. But the Peruvian style is, to me, on a completely different level. It's fresher, like it's more raw. It's got more stuff on the side. It's like a meal unto itself. It's
Okay,
nuts. And
right
you get
on.
it everywhere here now.
Right, of course.
Internet, everybody's learning everybody else's stuff.
Sure.
And how to cook it.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Actually,
And
the
so-
best ceviche is the simplest ceviche, the one you don't throw too much shit in.
Yeah, right on. And then price wise, comparable. For example, here in the United States, or in Florida at least, I can't speak for San Francisco, but in Florida, a decent place to eat, a lunch outing on the low end will be $15-$20, normally closer to $25-$30.
It's like San Francisco.
That's
Okay.
kind of
24
how Panama
people.
is now. Panama on the low end is about a $20. Like if you're gonna go out and get a emparedado or a beer and keep it simple, you're looking at that. And it used to be much cheaper, but if you want to really dine in Panama now, it's expensive. But like
Okay.
your appetizers are $10, $12, $15. Your main meal, $30, $40, $50. Jesus, I've seen steaks like $120 imported
Wow.
steaks that a few years ago were $50, which was expensive already. But
Sure.
the street food is good. The fonda food is good. And this is what's a funny story. I always felt people here look down their nose at their own cuisine, but I noticed when you go to Miami and you ask some regular dude on the street who happened to be Cuban, he'd always like be, hey, go eat over there. The food is insane. And you go and it's Cuban food. And you're eating it and it's Caribbean cuisine. It's the same thing as Panama's, as Puerto Rico's, as Venezuela's.
Correct.
Some things have a different name, but here's where the difference is. That for so many years, a Cuban thinks of their own cuisine as the best thing in the world, whereas we down here kind of looked at the cocina Panameña, like obrero food, like
Yeah.
but that's changing. There's some really, really good restaurants here that ain't cheap, and it's all Panamanian típico food, nicely done. Maito is one. If you ever come here, go to this restaurant called Maito.
Okay. Interesting.
Expensive.
So now you mentioned that it is getting expensive, which is, I guess, it's happening everywhere, and food's more in demand. But the flip side to that, looking at the video that we did with Korean Time, you had a pretty good sized plate there for $11, man.
That's cheap. That's all. Like you can go in there and just flip a spring roll and they'll charge you for the weight, or you could just load up. It's just weight. It can be all of one thing or a combination or a mix.
And the quality of the food was pretty good.
Just weigh it and that's it. And it's really good price. And you can even have a drink in there. They got a liquor license.
Wow, how about that? And the quality of the food is a good price for $11.
Oh yeah, man. You know what the telltale of what is legit Korean food? Well, number one, it's full all the time now.
Right.
It's full.
Correct.
Always people, Canal, the Maritime University, workers around there, even the Chinese bridge crew people go in there. But the telltale is the Korean ladies that go golfing out at Hiroko or whatever they call the golf course out there now.
Right.
After they're done with their golf, they pile in there and they have chow there. So
okay.
I don't think they'd pile in there if it wasn't good.
Right. No kidding. Cool. Well, that's good, man. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to more of these episodes. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, talking about the different food joints in Panama, especially as we start getting closer to that reunion down in the Canal Zone.
Keep people informed.
Yeah, people are going to want to get plugged in and start planning some of their outings, even just smaller groups, right? Obviously Napoli's is one of those popular outings because we saw plenty of pictures of that. So
Naps is a gimme. That's
exactly. That's
is a landmark.
you have to.
Yeah, you have to go. It's like a
Correct.
pilgrimage.
Correct.
Yeah.
But then again, if you're still going to be in and around the zone and you want to stop and get a bite to eat, know that there's some good food joints out there. And if you're looking for a good value and some good Korean food, now we know Korean time, which stay tuned on SCN Canals and we'll post the full video on that so you guys can really check it
We'll
out.
try to keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, and that's the thing about these episodes. It's really cool, guys. They're 5, 6, 7 minutes long. It's not this long, drawn out story. It's just letting you know, hey, come in, check this out. This is what we got. This is some good price. You like it, run with it. And look at that. Who's that? Chili Mac. What happened, loco?
Crashing the party, loco. Crashing the party.
Yeah,
we love it.
No matter what,
The
no matter
characters
how
are
hard
always
they try.
invited on
Yeah,
the
he's
show.
got nothing to do with the show, by the way.
He had to put that asterisk in there, man. Watch out. You never know, though. You
It
never
could
know.
be.
It could
Yeah.
be, man.
He could be. He could be a guest. Yes, yes.
He seemed good on the camera there. I think he'd do all right. Hell, you had Wendell Sasso on there, if you guys noticed just a moment ago. So
We got lucky with Wendell, man. He's
Yeah.
he's under the radar for everything, man. Actually,
Right.
I had to ask him permission. Are you going to be cool with being on the camera?
listen, man, that's what SCN Canalsland does, man. The SCN Happy at the Balboa Yacht Club draws everybody out. That's what it does. So it's gonna be cool. So listen, Jason, thanks again, dude. I really, really appreciate you doing this. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun for all of us, and looking forward to learning about all the cool food joints down in Panama, man.
Yes.
So anyway, have a good weekend, brother. We'll talk to you later. Yes, salud, papa.
Cheers, guys.
All right. Dude, that's going to be a lot of fun, man. I'm excited for that, man. Excited for all the cool food joints that are going to be out there. And there's a lot of, like you say, a lot of good eating down there.
And he's doing a good job. I mean, he's putting in the hard hours. He's putting in the work.
He is.
He's making a very, very good show.
Yeah. No. It's, and you know what? He, like he mentioned earlier, he the first one he did it with his phone, and the audio wasn't the quality. But he's like, hey, what the hell, man? Let's go all in, man. And so
he's got
sent
some
him
good
some
equipment.
recommendations on some good equipment to get. That he's got one of those gimbals that you can walk around and it keeps a nice steady picture. And he's got some good mics and everything. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a good quality show for, it's this top-notch quality program that you have here that just kind of screws up on occasion. But nonetheless, it's going to be a lot of fun. So. But hey,
Yeah.
Sheila, good evening to you. And yes, we know your birthday's Saturday. Don't worry. we
Happy
got the list
birthday
here.
to you, Sheila.
Yeah, so it's coming here.
Yeah, I want to apologize from now if I screw up your last name.
Yeah.
Chisholm.
That's
Is that right?
Chisholm. I guess it'd be is I guess the L is sort of kind of maybe in some places you would pronounce, other places you may not. Just I guess maybe depends on where you're at. But let me see here. We ate at Sabroso, Panama, out on the coast. Okay, right on. Twice when we've been 20. Great food. Okay, cool. There you go. So there's one place you guys know of now in the Causeway, Sabroso, Panama. That's, if I'm not mistaken, Vern, that's the place that has the big bus or the front end of the bus, right? Inside it. Is that, I think that's the one the class of 84 had a big gathering last year for the Canal Zone reunion. I believe that was the place there, but if so, that's a pretty cool place. Schulte, what's going on, man? How much is a Napoli pepperoni pizza going for these days? I know that'd be interesting to find out. Somebody down there, Andrew,
Was it
is
like
still
$13,
on.
something like that? If I remember right, $14.
That's not bad for a Napoli's, and now they're delivering. It's amazing, huh? It's amazing it took this long for that. Because remember,
Oh
what
no,
was
they
the
have
first-
because we've announced it on our show, but it's been a while. We've talked about it here.
What was the first pizza delivery business in Panama? See if anybody
Ooh, I think
remembers.
I know.
I think I know what it is, unless I'm wrong. I know the name, but unless there was one before that, I don't think there was. But
Not during when I lived there. There was no delivery of anything.
this was towards. This started probably, I would say, closer to like 86, 85, 86, 87, somewhere in there is when that started. But it was they delivered on motorcycles. I'll leave it at that. And their colors were blue and yellow. Look at Duper. There you go. Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. And I know some people that jumped one of those guys one time and took their pizza. Yeah. Like Al says, I'm not going to name names. But yeah, that was Sue Pizza was the name of that. They had the blue and yellow outfits. they had the little. I guess they were like 80cc, 100cc bikes, man. You could probably outrun them on a bicycle, man. But they first started delivering in a zone, and they were decent pie. It wasn't bad. But anyhow, so Sheila just reminded us that we haven't done our birthdays yet, so we're gonna go ahead and do our birthdays. And oh, you know what? I just realized I'm like, Dave's gonna join us here in a second, but Dave doesn't have a link to join the show, so let me send that to him while you
Send
start
them
doing your
that, and
birthdays.
then I say, Raina forward me the YouTube show with Al.
Yeah.
I sent it to you, so if you want to post that when we have a chance to.
Yeah, it was on the chat earlier. We'll throw it on the screen again, but we'll definitely put that one up there. And then let me get a hold of Dave, and yeah, go ahead and start your birthdays, and I'll
All right, yeah, that's good.
These guys
I got a real special one for those that know me when I was in 10th grade. Well, I want to start these birthdays. If you guys remember this young girl, she left when she was in 10th grade, black hair and the prettiest blue eyes you've ever seen. From La Boca, Veronica Huffman. Happy birthday to Veronica Huffman. And class of 81. So moving on with some more class of 81. Philip Rabbit Ruthven, who used to play the keyboards for that band called Magic. From my age group, they were pretty good. We also have Richard Farley. Happy birthday, Mr. Farley.
Right on.
Also from La Boca, Mrs. Melanie Carlin, a.k.a. Mel.
Right.
And as well as Priscilla Corco. Those are the class of 81 birthday.
There you go.
And
that's that
moving right on along, Tom White. Happy birthday to Mr. Tom. Beatrice Dunn, the big sister of one of our popular viewers, is always with us. Dwight Dunn. Yes. Amer Aguilar. Happy birthday to you. The very great guitarist.
Aimeth Aguilar.
And followed closely by Fernando Richards. Happy birthday, Fernando.
Right on.
Carissa Huey Preto. Happy birthday.
There you go.
Nikki Thread. Happy birthday to you, Nikki. Hold on. As well as Bosco Hoyt.
Nice.
He's part of the Panama Canal Society.
He is quite the avid cruiser, man. That guy, it seems like he's on a cruise all the time, man. That's pretty cool.
Well, we're at that age. A lot of these guys are like right at that retirement age. So who knows?
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
No, he does good.
Jean Marine Osberger. Happy birthday. Hope I got that right. Ron Phillips.
Hey, Ron.
Happy birthday. And to a very, very special guy, Dirk Bouzier. His father is the man that started my career in architecture back in 8th grade. And I'm still doing what that guy taught me.
How about that, huh?
So happy birthday,
nice
Dirk.
There, man.
Yeah. Kenny Hines. Happy birthday, Mr. Hines. And of course, Sheila Chisholm. Hope I got that right. Lang.
There you go, Sheila.
Happy birthday, Sheila.
Right on.
Oh, I missed Diane Elizabeth. Now, I think you probably missed her last name. Otherwise, her last name is Elizabeth. Diane Elizabeth. Happy birthday.
Okay. It's possible.
Lisa Keating. But forgot that one too. Last but not least, Lisa Keating, the beautiful Lisa Keating. And that concludes, I'm looking at it, our birthday list.
All right. And of course, anyone else that we missed, happy birthday to you. We try and get as many as we can, but keep sending them in. And either way, though, happy birthday. Yeah, I did see that Leaf just put on that Bosco was at the yacht club. I saw that picture with you guys. That's pretty cool. But right on, very good. Anyhow, yes. So happy birthday to all of these folks and anyone else that we missed their birthday. But happy birthday to all of you guys, and then we'll. There you go, man. So again, anybody that we didn't, happy birthday to you guys. And Mark Rosenberg, happy birthday, brother. Good to see you, man. Mark was one of my next door neighbors, not next door, but several houses down, out in the Amador Road days. And if you look at my family pictures during Christmas, it's really funny because Mark's Jewish, right? So they celebrated Hanukkah. So of course they don't celebrate Christmas. But Christmas Day, 7 a.m., man, he was at the house, man, and he might as well be part of the family because he would sit there on the floor with us opening gifts. And so many times people would look at pictures and like, "Who's that?" Well, that's my friend Mark, because it was all. I mean, it was every year. It was great. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, good to see you, Mark. That's really cool to have you pop in on the show. Hello to you, brother. Happy Friday. But yes, again, happy birthday to everybody, and now we shall move along. We're actually a little bit behind schedule, but that's typical for what we do here. So let's get ready to bring on then our. It's of course the first of the month, and which means that of course our Canal Zone historian used to be our non-historian, but now he's of course our Canal Zone historian, and I got to work on an intro song. That's the one thing I don't have for Dave is an intro song. We got one for everybody else, so we got to come up with a cool one for Dave. That actually, you know what, Mark Cicero, that's what you can help me do is come up with a cool historic Canal Zone historian tune for Dave to bring him on because this guy he's one of the anchors of this show, man. I mean, he's
Yeah, yeah, he
really,
is.
you
It's
know,
like when you go to a baseball game, Willie. When the batters come up, they always have their song, dude, and he comes up the bat.
right. Yeah,
That's
you have the walk on. Remember Mariano Rivera had the most famous. I mean, he had Metallica when he comes walking on the field, man. And dude, you get pumped up for that. So we definitely got to have some Dave Dahlstrom Canals on historian music. So there you go, Mark. If you can help us out, that would be appreciated. But Dave, welcome to the show, man. Happy Friday to you, man.
Thanks, guys. It's good to be back.
Yes, it
Thank
is.
you, thank you, Dave. Good to see
All
you.
right. Yeah, I'd like to see Mark do a song. We played on Conejos together.
Right on. There you go.
Yeah,
So there's a
yeah.
personal connection anyway. So right on.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun to have him put on a song there for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can use Barracuda. That's my song.
Sure.
And there's Zonian girls.
Yeah, as long as we give it,
Yeah.
we attribute it to the right people. We don't have the YouTube folks barking down our throat. They did that again today on something else. I got a notification. They're like, "Hey, we need to share your monetary." I'm thinking monetary. We ain't moving that many people to get money here. But if you're paying something, I ain't seen but a nickel maybe. But they said that somebody complained that it's their music, and I'm like, no, I don't think so, man, because I pay for a service that has royalty-free music, and that's what I use. Just like before, they said that about Shorty and Slim. I'm like, I don't think so. I've got it in writing that I can use that. In fact, he's been on the show, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, we're sorry. So,
All right. Well, before we get started, we are talking about the food, the dirty naps and the new naps. And I got to tell you, when we went down last time, Andrew picked us up, and it was getting late. Not a lot of things were open, but he called the new naps and ordered a pizza so we could go pick it up. And so we drove from the airport right past there, and we were able to get a parking spot right there by the side door where you pick up pizzas.
right.
And it wasn't quite ready yet. And the girl comes out to the car, and we say, "Hey, can we get a beer?" Sure. So go in, get a beer, bring it out to the car. Let's have beer and pizza right there. And I was like, this has to be the new thing to do when you come in is just go through the drive-through, get a pizza and a Panama beer on the way home.
So when I order up food, then and they're like, "It'll be ready in 30 minutes," I'm going to be there in 20 minutes, man. What the hell with that? I'm going to go there and hang out for a minute. And
that
have a
was
few beers, man.
that was the nicest service to have. So that was pretty good. And
man.
all right, so tonight we're going to talk about a few things. I got to get my presentation back up here.
Right on.
We're going to start off with some famous Zonians, but tonight it'll be a little bit different. I'm going to we'll start off with who the person is, and you have to guess something about this person.
Okay, right on.
Then of course, about a year ago was the first time I started doing the show, and we were talking about Acquisition Day.
Correct.
And I don't think a lot of Zonians know what Acquisition Day is. So since it's Sunday, May 4th, we're going to have a little bit of a rerun and talk about Acquisition Day. And if you heard it last year, too bad. You're going to hear it again.
Well, there you go, because it may be on a Kahoot.
So I won't spend too much time on it, but I'm going to do a refresher course on that.
Okay. Right
and then coming up later in the week, it's May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, and we had 5th of May Plaza. And I was reading the Canal Record, and I read a story about why that plaza was built. And so we also like to do a little bit about Panama history. So I'm going to do a little segment on Plaza Cinco de Mayo.
Cool.
And then we've talked about a number of things in the past. Eisenhower in the 50s going to Panama, and some of the troubles that they had there.
Sure.
And we all know about the 64 riots and the flag raising and those types of things, or at least a lot of it. But I always considered the 5th of May Plaza kind of associated with the riots.
Right.
And I didn't know why, so I was looking at it, and I have a neighbor here in Maryland, and she's in her 70s now, and our neighbors had a birthday party for her. It was her 70th birthday.
Okay.
And we met for the first time, and she said that she lived in Panama as a kid.
Wow.
She was a diplomat kid, but she went to school at Ancon Elementary School.
Wow, what are the odds
And she
of that?
told me the story that they all had to run from the school because there were snipers shooting at them, and there was tear gas going all over the place. So everyone was scattering all around Ancon, and she had a driver, and the driver, grabbed her, and they rushed off to safety somewhere. But that was in the 50s.
That's amazing.
And so I don't really know a lot about that. So I started looking a little bit about that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the 1959 riots. And then later on in some other show, we'll talk about the 64 stuff. And then I have a couple of Where Am I's. And then I also want to talk about Charles Lindbergh. And because he came and visited Panama. And on May 21st is the anniversary of his flight across the Pacific from New York to Paris. So it's one of those things that's kind of timely. So that's my show tonight, and
cool.
so we're gonna start it off with famous Zonian segment, and this one's a special edition.
Of course.
And I think we can all agree that Al Sprague, a very special Zonian, very famous Zonian, probably one of the Zonians that if you were carving faces into the rock at Gaillard Cut, he'd be in there probably.
Sure. I would go for Ancon Hill. It's got the side face there. Ancon Hill, ripped out, and I think it would be great because it faces his own,
Right. So wherever they carved that, he'd make that list.
Ricky, talk to your uncle, man. See if we can get that going, man.
Mm-hmm. I'm on it.
So my famous Zonian tonight is, where did Al Sprague paint his first painting?
Okay, where did Al Sprague paint his first painting, guys? Let's throw it out there in the chat, see if everybody knows where that would be. Pat Schulte, $6.50. Is that for what, a pizza, a beer?
The pizza.
Damn.
Wow, that's cheap.
Man, you can't even get a slice for $6.50 here. I'm serious, you can't. Wow, that's crazy. Mark, we're working on. Yeah, right on. Cool. There you go, Dave.
All right.
Right on. Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that, man.
All right.
All right, guys. So what are we thinking here, huh? We got a couple of guesses coming in the chat there. Do we have a drum roll, Ricky? You're playing with the drum roll. You don't have a drum roll.
Oh, I'm falling asleep over here.
You can see I put Al's famous stamp in the background there.
Yeah.
So it's a special edition, famous Zonians there.
It is.
Might leave it there.
It is.
Let's go on. Let's go to the picture will be the answer.
All right, so moving along then, the picture, there it is, guys. That's absolutely right, guys. It's on the causeway. Captain Andrew threw it out there. Leaf Soline threw it out there. So, yep, absolutely, on the causeway. In fact, when Cassie was on, and with Al when they were on, Cassie's been on twice. Remember, Cassie was our very first guest on this show.
That's correct. The first one, yeah.
And but when she was on, and then also later on when her and Al joined us, they mentioned this. This is where he went out and painted his first picture. And it's really cool because you can see, sort of kind of, obviously it's a painting and in the style of Al Sprague, but as you can see on there, the skyline certainly looks a lot different, from what he painted as to what you're looking at there in real time. And it was quite a different time when he started doing that. But that's really cool, man. That's a great way to attribute a great Zonian in there for sure.
So go to the next one. Maybe you can see the picture a little bit better.
Oh, there you go. Absolutely. Yeah. There it is. And then go back again. Look at that skyline there. And then look at that skyline. Quite a bit different. What is it, like 4 buildings that are above the rooftops? and the other one's
Yeah.
probably like 40 buildings. That's amazing.
So that area where it is, it's closer to the officers club. It's near the front part of the causeway. And we've talked before about the French Canal access and how
Yeah.
it was curving, and this is about the area where that would be as well. So in
Okay.
between where this sign is and the officers club is a general area where the French dug there. They actually did dig it um, in that
Was it
area.
filled
So it
back in
passed.
then afterwards?
I'm sure it got filled in, silted
Yeah.
in, and
Makes sense.
um, stuff like that. But they were using it until the breakwater came in and closed it off.
Okay.
But for 5 years it was open, and they were using it, and they built that wharf there right where the bridge is now, and that was basically the port. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, so that's pretty interesting. You can go there. There's a parking lot. I don't know, about 50 yards from the line. You can just walk down to it and see it. So next time you go there, stop and check it out. Pay your respects.
Absolutely, and take a picture and send it in. There's a QR
Hmm.
code there, and scan that as well. But take a picture and send it to PanamaArts.com. That's of course the Al Sprague
Yep.
website, and
All
definitely
right.
go and pay him some patronage. And real quick on the sign here, I know it's hard to read there, but says that this was in 1956. That's what Panama City looked like back then. And it was when he was 18 years old, and he first set out
So
to
that would have been the year he graduated, right?
yeah. There you
So
go.
senior high school,
Look
Balboa
at
High
that.
School
56.
graduate.
Look at that. A BHS senior
Yeah.
putting that out there. And
So
then
look
lo
at
and
that.
behold, that's the first of many fantastic pictures to come
Hmm.
around after that, man. Very cool. So,
So we have an interesting Al Sprague. It's a Hawaiian one.
Mhm.
okay. Yeah, that's a
He did
unique
a
one.
few
I lived
Hawaiian
there when he went there to
things.
go paint that.
Yeah.
And he
That's right.
called
We
me
talked
when
about
he
that
was
on the
in
show.
Hawaii. And he called me out of the blue. I pick up, hey, Ricky, this is Al Sprague. Wow. Unbelievable what that did to me to
Right.
get a call from him out of just nowhere. And then he let me know he was going to be in Hawaii doing some painting for, I think, the Hilton Hawaiian Village, if I recall right.
Interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember you mentioning that on the show when he was on
Hmm.
back in the day. That's
Okay.
cool.
Very, very,
And
very
then
lucky.
so all right, we'll move on. This next one is just when I was leaving the airport last time. They have what those gift shops,
Right?
and just looking at the shelves, and there's Al Sprague stamps, Canal Zone stamps, and stuff up there.
Framed and everything.
Yeah, so I sent this to Cassie. I don't know if it's legit or not, but
Well,
it's
that's
like
true. Yeah.
check
All of a sudden she's
check
like, wait, we don't have any of those.
check it out. Maybe he gets some royalties there. But
That's funny.
so just you never know where you see it. You just got
Yeah,
to
no
look
kidding.
around and you see these things. And I went out to dinner with a classmate, 83 grad classmate. She actually left before then, and I mentioned Al Sprague's name to her, and she's like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "Are you kidding
Wow.
me?" But so not everybody, if you didn't live
Sure.
there for a long time, you may not know, or
Correct.
it's 40 years ago as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
indeed.
said if you saw his stuff, you'd know exactly who he was. But all right, so we're gonna go on to the big day, acquisition day.
All right. And that Sunday coming up is the
So
anniversary of that.
put in the comments if you've heard of acquisition day before um, or not. But acquisition day is May 4th,
Thank you, Chief.
1904. And last year when I was talking about this, I kept on saying 1903.
Okay.
So let's go to the next slide. And just so we know, Panama wasn't independent until November 3rd, 1903. So
Correct.
acquisition day can't be 1903. It has to be in 1904.
Makes sense.
And this is basically just saying, we've the telegram that Panamanians sent to the U.S. about declaring their independence. And if you remember on some of the other shows that I've done on this and showed other telegrams, there's so many telegrams before that talk about sending ships and all that other stuff. It was no surprise that this had happened. It's kind of funny to see it. So then let's go on to the next one. It's another one. This is like a couple days later, and we've proclaimed our authority, and it's the territory. But one of the interesting things back when the Canal Zone was established, and it took a while for that treaty to be written, a couple of weeks
Right.
after this, but the Canal Zone is 5 miles on either side of the canal.
Correct.
And that also meant that Panama City and Cologne were part of the Canal Zone.
Right.
And so when you look at some of the old maps, you will see Panama City is included in the boundary. And then later on, you will see that it's not included in the boundary. And as part of this process, they had to go through and they actually had to survey where that boundary was and where it wasn't. Where's the dividing line? And they basically, for the first time, set a boundary between Panama City and Canal Zone and Cologne and Canal Zone. And some of the, it's just on the other side of the street in some
Sure.
of these places.
Right.
So, and of course, the French were using an old hotel down in Casco Viejo on Cathedral Plaza as their headquarters since the 1880s. And so when we talk about Acquisition Day, which is the day that the U.S. actually took possession
Right.
of the canal properties, the titles, and the buildings and all the machines, and even to some degree the Panama Railroad. That's kind of a separate thing, but all that equipment and buildings that happened on May 4th, 1904, and
There you go.
so it is called Acquisition Day. And if you go on to the next slide, here it is, the newspaper in May 4th, 1904. I can't remember where this was. I think it's Tacoma, Washington, which would make sense because they're West Coast. They get their news a little bit later.
Sure.
And
Sure.
the East Coast had already printed their stuff. But it
Right.
says
No internet
earlier
back
this
then.
morning, the U.S. took possession of the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
And so it's May 4th, and so it was called Acquisition Day. You can't read this one, so go on to the next one. You probably can't read these either. But
Well, it does. I do see a little bit on here because I've got it on a bigger screen on my end over here, and it does
Yeah.
say at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah,
Exactly.
Right on.
But we have others that we'll talk about some of this stuff. But I don't expect you to read stuff. Some of the stuff, just the resolution, I can't get a higher quality
Yeah, of course.
image. Unfortunately, I'm stealing it from the internet, and sometimes you get limited on your stuff.
Yeah.
So on this next one, the Washington Times, the canal is ours, fast and tight. Property formally turned over to the United States by the French company. There was a ceremony, and there was an act of transfer, and then it says Second Lieutenant Brooke accepts tender for the United States from the French representative. And you can go on to the next one.
Well, and what's real interesting, real quick, when you mentioned that the second lieutenant, if you understand rank in the military, on the officer end of it, the lieutenant is probably one of the lower end ranks, and the second is actually, like a sub lieutenant in a sense. So it really was for the monumental acquisition. It was, it really was a low band person doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of amusing that you would think of,
Well,
nowadays
yeah.
it would almost
The story
be an insult
behind
to
that,
say
and I
that's where
have
you're
some
sitting,
other slide on here but the military man that was in charge had to have some surgery, and this wasn't expected to take place for a couple more weeks.
Oh, interesting.
So he was traveling back to the United States. And then it's like, nope, it got done. Send somebody. It's like, really? All we have there is a second lieutenant.
Hey, you're the one, man.
You're the one.
Congratulations.
So that's
in history forever.
You exactly forever enshrined in history, man. Just
and
because
apparently
he was right place at the right time.
Yeah, he's the nephew of some famous Army general, Brooks. I haven't looked him up, so I'm not exactly sure what he's famous for. But the newspaper article says he's the nephew of a guy. So it's kind of like you wouldn't say that unless he was somebody that everyone
you could
kind of
recognize.
knew.
Yeah.
But you can see in this next one, it's just a blow up of that previous one that says that the United States has title and possession. and so I mean, they bought it from a French company. So I
Right.
mean, when they were buying rights to buildings
Sure.
and all that other stuff.
Well, and even on the other end of it, it's avoiding liabilities. Until this
Right.
date, I'm not liable for it, or at this date, I'm not liable anymore. And so
Right.
you have to have a set
Okay.
date and a signed paper with it, or it's
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Right. And so from November 3rd until May 4th, that's how long it took to be able to get you know
everything in place.
the payment to
Yeah.
them and stuff. And so if you look on the next one, on the bottom of that article, you can see it says payment for Canal through JP Morgan.
Of course.
JP Morgan Chase Bank out of New
Hmm.
York. And Chase has a lot of JP Morgan has a lot of influence on Panama Canal. That probably be its own segment as well. But
Right.
one of the things, you had to get a bank that could do business, multinational, that had
Right.
$40 million that could transfer, stuff
Sure.
like that. So, and it's what's interesting, and you can't probably read this. I tried blowing it up so you could, but basically it says that the Treasury is arranged with Morgan and Company to authorize or approve this transfer of 40 million, and it sends it to the French, and it's to the Bank of France, but it's 40 million francs,
Okay.
not dollars. And we've talked about monetary process, and Panamanians are on the peso
You're right.
from
Right.
Colombia, and the U.S. was
Silver,
on the gold,
gold,
and
right?
British islands, the West Indies, they were on silver as well. So a lot of this stuff, when we talk about gold and silver, had to do a lot with the, what people currency was, because every
Sure. What
country
they
had
could
a
use.
currency, and you had to be able to transfer that and
You had to be able to
make
trade with it.
trade with, right, exactly. So, but this is kind of interesting that the JP Morgan is just kind of secondary, but it still made the news
Heck
that this
yeah.
happened.
And they made
And
a sweet buck on it as well, I'm sure.
yeah, I'm sure they did. Well, they also did the payroll for the US government, because every month JP Morgan had to send actual gold and silver
Right.
to Panama for payday. And there's one article where it says the gold didn't get there in time.
Ooh, that's a problem.
It's going to be a day late. Like
Yeah,
people
you
were
gotta have my money.
people are upset. Like,
Heck yeah.
hey, wait a minute. It's coming from New York, and it's a lot. And all right,
Boy,
so
imagine if a canal was being built, 200 years earlier with all the piracy, man.
yeah,
There's some serious money,
right.
going between the United States and Panama.
I think I can sell 40 million now.
Yeah, yeah,
All right,
right. Indeed. A little
all right.
bit
So
faster now.
so the next one. This is actually Lieutenant Brooke,
Oh, right
Okay,
on.
right.
and
For
he's a
Zonian.
West Point grad.
Yeah. So is this considered then Zonian number 00001?
Well, I mean, he
Technically.
he he signed for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not the zone until his ink is on the paper.
So
Yeah,
you're looking at the first Zonian ever.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Okay, I
And
think
what
we'll
was his
You
use
could
name
that
say
as
again?
that'll be a Mark Brook, Lieutenant,
Mark
second
Brooke.
Lieutenant Mark Brook.
second lieutenant.
But hey, the guy went to the Annapolis, so he wasn't no
No,
slouch.
no,
He didn't
no.
just
This is
enlist.
this is this is West Point.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Annapolis. I'm sorry. Yes, West Point. But he went to the military academy. You're right. So I mean,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
guy wasn't any slouch, man. He
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
the
he
other
went
thing
on.
too, and one of the reasons why I put in the Independence Day, November 3rd, November 4th thing, is because the U.S. had sent ships and Marines there in advance, and we talked about Lejeune being one of the
Yep.
Marines that was sent. Um, basically, they sent a couple hundred Marines there to make sure nothing got out of control.
Yeah. Right.
But Brooks was already there because the Marines had been in Panama since the Panama Railroad started
Okay.
in like 1855, 1852. And they had an agreement with Colombia that they would help squash any rebellions and stuff. And they probably, helped out on, 20 or more, 20, 30 different rebellions over the years.
Sure. Sure.
And and also with the gold, the 49ers and all those people coming and people
Absolutely.
traveling, they kept order,
Yeah.
for that area. So the Marines had been in Panama for 50 years at this point.
Yes, I've been posting on that. 175 consecutive years we've
Mhm.
had U.S. troops in Panamanian territory.
Right.
175 consecutive years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
So he was there, and they didn't fight, but on Independence Day he was there.
Of course.
And then of course he stayed there, and then when this happened, he had the fortune to be the one that goes in
Yeah. They're
and
like,
collects
I
the
need the
keys.
representative from the United States. He's like,
Yep. Mhm.
me?
So go to the
All
go to
right.
the next one.
And real quick, Pedro Vanga's putting in there that Major General John Rudder Brooke of the U.S. Army was a veteran of the American Civil War, Indian Wars, and the Spanish
Wow.
American War. Okay, right
So
on.
this guy was just not, yeah, he was
Just a pedigree
somebody.
there. Right on. Thank you, Pedro. Well done.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
So when you this next one, this was I believe this was Canal's CZ Bratz, or
Okay.
someone had posted this, and this was the 100th anniversary of Acquisition Day. So this was a number of years ago, but he wrote, this is what this guy wrote. Right? You can't read it in there, but I'll read part of it. I, Mark Brooke, officer of the Corps of Engineers of the Army of the United States of North America, declare and state the following. Today, the 4th of May, 1904, early in the morning, in my capacity as representative of the governments of the United States of North America, I came to the building situated in the city of Panama, known that city by the name of Hotel de la Compagnie, which are located in the central offices of the new Panama Canal Company, for the purposes of receiving, in the name of my principal, the government of the United States of America, all the properties, personal and real, of the above named company, which are located in the Isthmus of Panama. After having shown my authority and instruction, the director of the new Panama Canal Company made formal delivery to me of said property, personal and real, in the following manner. And then just goes on, and it basically says, I got the keys to the
Right.
buildings, and I
for a
got the
second there, he's like,
inventory of
man, if I
all the
take off right
property.
now, if I go to
And so,
Bogota right now, I can make some money. I got the keys to everything.
yeah,
And
so
run off with it.
yeah, so then he basically, I acknowledge that I received this stuff, and I've passed on this to possession to the United States of America, and it's written and signed in French and Spanish.
I wonder if he had any idea of how monumental that actually was, or if he was just like, yeah, it's just part of my job, man.
I'm sure he did, because when you start reading about the Panama Canal, everybody was
That's true.
jacked
That's
up
true.
about
That was
it.
a heroic
Everybody
thing.
was
You're
jacked
right.
up about this project.
That's true. That's true. And it wasn't something that was new. It was a new project for the United States, but the Panama Canal concept and work was not new, and it was not unknown.
Yeah.
So that's true.
And
That's a
the
good point.
technology was the latest too in construction technique. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it was a big deal.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
yeah, no, that's
So-
what we do here, Jason.
Yeah,
we learned a
yeah.
lot of new shit here, man. That's why we love
Right.
having Dave on, dude, because this is
So
always
then this
something new, man.
next one goes on a little bit more about Acquisition Day, and basically says, in Paris they made the final arrangements for the purchase of the Panama Canal, and Major Black, not realizing the advanced state of the purchase negotiations, obtained leave of absence and returned to the United States. And he was ambitious to become the chief engineer to build the Panama Canal. Well, that didn't happen either. Apparently, without the knowledge of Major Black, Secretary of War Taft, anticipating an early exchange of the property, authorized Lieutenant Brooke late in April to act in conformity with the instructions he would receive from the United States representative in Paris. So on May 3rd, the instructions came, and then he directed all the canal properties from the new Panama Canal Company to be taken over the next day. So early in the morning, Lieutenant Brooke and Director General Renaudin, who was French, they met at the Grand Hotel, the French offices, and then Brooke signed the $40 million receipt for the French company holdings at 7:30 a.m. and hoisted Old Glory over the building, an event that caused May 4th, 1904 to become known as Acquisition Day.
Right on.
So that was the
Good
first day
that
they raised the American flag in Panama.
exactly. Well, I mean, they might have done it on the railroad, but or on
But
their
from an
marine
official
camps,
ownership capacity.
but that was it. 7:30 a.m. on May 4th, and that's that's the Panama Canal Museum down there.
Okay. Oh,
Down
that's
at
where that is. Okay,
That's
look
where
at
that
that.
is. Yeah, it's the
Oh,
And
same
that
very
build. It's the
good.
hotel is
same
still
building.
there.
Very good.
And
And
that
by the way,
hotel is
how's
still there.
Leaf? Let me know if the volume's better on this. I don't know why my mic. He says my mic volume's not very high. I don't know what to do. So.
You're fine.
So then it goes on to say this young second lieutenant, just 2 years out of West Point, cabled his action to the commission sitting in Washington, and they announced that the U.S. had taken possession. And then the new organization had 746 employees
How about that?
on 15,000 gold. And see, they were already paid in gold because they were Americans
That's it.
back then. And then it talks about there were 2,148 French buildings and files and records. It also included the magnificent Ancon Hospital.
How about that? Yeah.
So and then the Toboga Sanatorium, and then some other types of things. So this is acquisition day. Basically, what that means is that we took control at that time, and this kind of this is an excerpt from the Star and Herald. Remember Star and Herald?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. May 5th, 1904. This is all that was written about it. It says, yesterday morning, Lieutenant Brooke, nephew of General Brooke, USA, in accordance with the instructions of the United States government, took possession of the new Panama Canal Company's property on the isthmus, and Old Glory was hosted at the central office of the extinct French company in this city,
Extinct. Hell yeah.
thus
Bye-bye.
publicly demonstrating that the transfer has taken place. The old employees of the company have been requested to continue in their present positions until further notice. So that's the 746 people that were already
Yeah, and
there.
it's also kind of telling that we're in a new century now. Things are getting more technology based, and now your important events like this, it's not just a day anymore. It's actually the time, right? And
Right.
that's something that you're
Sure.
gotten reports. Prior to that, dates when things happen, but we don't know if it was morning, afternoon, evening, whatever. Here
Right.
we know exactly the time it happened, and that's
Yeah.
again, when this was done, it was probably a telegraph that within about a minute or two,
Right.
that's already in Washington, and that's
Mhm.
again, it's things are starting to get a lot faster, and in another 10 years from that, things are going to get even faster when ships can now go halfway around the journey they did before.
Right.
So
Yeah. So this is acquisition day. I love telling this story. This what started in doing this segment anyway. So I never heard about it. I'd never heard about it. I left the zone. I'd left almost for 40 years before I heard it for the first time.
yeah, no, indeed. I mean, most
crazy.
of us that's the case. We've until we've had you on the show, we had no idea that this stuff was happening, and it was part of our history we grew up with.
All right. So then I decided I'd show a couple pictures of the building. This one shows like some American flags. It says it's July 4th, and it was the Isthmian Canal Commission headquarters from 1904 to 1908. So when Stevens went down there, this was his office.
Right. Right.
Because the French they did their headquarters was here, and they would have to go out in the field. When Stevens came, this is where he started, but he said, "No, I'm moving in Goethals. We're moving out to Empire. We're going to be where the action is."
Absolutely.
But when the first like Gorgas, he came in June of 1904. So those were like the first hires for the new company.
And it makes you wonder if that also impacted the inability of the French to complete this, was the fact that your decision makers were not constantly out there in front and seeing it firsthand themselves, and so therefore you're bound to fail. I mean,
it probably didn't help.
No, certainly
you couldn't
not.
just pick up the phone and call.
Goethals,
right?
every day Goethel's gotten his little private buggy thing and did literally the rounds of the canal, 50 miles.
Right. Yeah,
every
and
single
you
day.
read about that he was everywhere.
Yeah, I sure was, and that was the thing. In fact, from reading the Path Between the Seas, it's because he had it was like a yellow color or something, and people knew the Yellow Menace. You see that thing coming down the track, you're like, get to
Yep.
work, guys. The big
Yep.
boss is here,
Right.
and that was every damn day, man.
Right.
That's why it happened that way, man.
All right. So so this was a hotel building, and then when the French came, they took it over and they made it their headquarters, and it was headquarters for almost 20 years with them. And then when the U.S. got it originally, for about 4 years until they transferred over to Empire.
Yep.
This is where, and you know those first couple years were cleaning up the place, and that's part of
Sure.
why Panama City was being cleaned up, is because that's where everyone was.
Right.
All right, so we'll go to the next one. I got a couple more photos of, but I think it's a cool building, and
Sure.
it's still there,
Still
but it
there,
says
yeah.
administration building. It's got the American flag on it.
Yeah, certainly.
The next one is an older image, and it says Company of the New Panama Canal Company. So that was the second French company. This is the one that sold it to the U.S. But there's a U.S. flag hanging across the road, but the date on this says 1882. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on. But I guess with the U.S. Railroad there, maybe it was on there.
That
But
could be.
but this is Cathedral Square that these guys are standing on, and that's still there as well.
Sure.
And then the next one is a super old picture, but you get to see some of the detail in that, and that looks like it could even be in France. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah,
The
really
French
is.
Mansion roof.
Look at the building next to it, the bigger one on the left side there. It looks like it's all built out of brick and stone, whereas this one looks much more modern, compared to the one.
Well, the one on the left doesn't have a roof on it. You can see right through
Right.
the windows. It's
Yeah.
not. It's like it's derelict.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see it was the Grand Hotel before it became the
French headquarters.
the French headquarters.
Yeah.
So, but that was a spectacular building. And we mentioned, okay, so we'll go on the next one.
That's a great picture, very great quality picture for
Yeah.
understanding the time that it was done, like in the 1870s or something.
And you can still go there. And now you go in there and you can see like that lens for the lighthouse that Eiffel built
Right.
on Toro Point. It's in that lobby
Oh, wow.
of this building now.
Okay, so this is definitely a must go when you go
Yeah,
down there, guys.
right.
The
Yeah,
Casco
yeah.
Viejo. Right on.
Definitely. And this is Ancon Hospital. But you see what the name is?
How about that? Notre Dame. How about that? For all you fighting
Hôpital
Irish fans.
Notre Dame de Canal, the French. I never knew it had a French name. I mean,
no
it's
idea. And
always
certainly not
been
Notre Dame.
Ancon
French-
Hospital,
yeah, the
Gorgas
French
Hospital,
hospital.
but it had a French name before it.
That's a trip,
Not,
man. No
Notre
doubt.
Dame. So, so those are things. That's but that's acquisition day in kind of a nutshell.
That's cool, man.
And
That's really cool.
it's going to be Sunday, so go out and celebrate.
Yeah.
Put out your Zonian flag, and then I've seen this a couple of places. I saw one on Facebook said that person wrote it for retirement in 1996. I don't know where it came from, but
Okay.
but I think we need to do a Zonian toast for Acquisition Day.
Indeed.
Yes.
Raise your glasses. So, Ricky, you want to read it?
Oh, if I can see it. May the Gamboa Road be your path in life. Let the dry season winds always be at your back. May the rainy season ripen the mangoes in your tree. Let the sun shine warm upon your face and on the causeway. And when we meet again, remember those who have drunk the water of the Chagres shall prosper and always be friends. Well, that was
All
tough to
right.
read.
Cheers.
Salute.
Right on.
All right. Happy
Acquisition
Day, y'all.
Acquisition Day, guys, on
Happy
Sunday.
Acquisition
Make
Day
sure you,
and all those that drank the Chagres water.
have to post that on,
All right.
On the page.
Okay, so then we're going to talk about Plaza. We always called it Plaza Fifth of May, not Cinco de Mayo, but
So that plaza is named after Mexicans?
What?
Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo, right? No, that's the famous plaza right
Chili's.
there.
Isn't it
Yeah,
Chili's
yeah.
or
So we'll go. No,
Taco Bell?
it's that's why we're talking about it. You know, this is Central Avenue is right there on the top on the right part,
Yep.
and it
Correct.
goes down. And Casa Faslish, the jewelry place that sponsored the baseball league,
Baseball.
was right in that area
Oh, that's
right
right.
there.
That's
But
right.
if you were walking down Central and when you got to this area, you know, the road widened out a bit, and all of a sudden you weren't like in this little street mall anymore.
Right.
It became a little bit different. And so I remember walking down that area, like in the early '80s and stuff. But going to the plaza wasn't some place you ever went to really,
Right.
And of course, when driving on Fourth of July Avenue and stuff, every time I heard about like Fifth of May Plaza, I always thought about it as being like the place where like the martyrs
Right.
were and stuff like that. So it was so for me it's kind of an unknown. I mean, I went by it I don't know how many hundreds of times, but I never went there.
Yeah. Never
And
bothered at it and figure out what it was.
yeah, and then I go to the U.S. and then all of a sudden everything is Cinco de Mayo, Mexican stuff, and you're like, why does this have this? It has the same name, but there's no relationship. So that's why we're going to
Yeah.
talk about it tonight.
Yeah.
So go on the next. It's a beautiful little plaza there.
Yeah.
And then the next image here, you can see the building on the right is the old, I
Museum,
believe
wasn't
it.
Station.
Yeah, exactly. And it's image I have up behind me. It's right.
That
It's
was
right
actually
there.
a really cool museum.
Yeah,
It
and
was.
that was part of the negotiations with the treaty. The U.S. not only did they give Panama the annual annuity, they also gave funds to construct some of these buildings, and so this was part of the original Panama Canal Treaty, and they used those funds to build a couple of spectacular buildings as part
Now,
of that.
Dave, if I'm not mistaken, was that not initially the railroad station?
Yeah,
That was the, and then you can
yeah,
tell because that's kind of a classic railroad station design with a clock
right.
in the front and everything. But
Yeah,
yeah, that was the Panama Railroad
yeah,
Station where the line
yeah.
ended.
That's what I was saying. In this image I have behind me, it's right
Right,
in
and
that
then later
area.
on it became a museum, which is I
Yeah,
went in
right.
there.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I think
cool.
when I went walking by, they were doing renovations. It was all like
Okay,
covered up and stuff, and so it was kind of just like, oh, can't walk through
interesting,
here.
interesting.
Turn around.
Right on.
But go to the next image too. And now it seems like it's a very kind of still a happening place.
Sure, it
Um,
almost seems even more accessible now
yeah,
because you're not surrounded by traffic.
yeah, because Central is now a walking street.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Wow, I
so
guess
I haven't actually walked it since it went, but but yeah, but so this I was reading in the Canal record, like I always do. Um, and you probably can't read the next slide, so you might want to just stay on on the image.
okay.
But it says explosion of Panama powder magazine,
Oh yes.
and this is May 5th, 1915. So this was just a couple of months before last month we talked about the Panama Tram, and it
Correct.
was August 16th, 1914. So it's like 6 months before. Um, and it says 8 people were killed and about 15 injured by blowing up of a powder magazine located in an old stone building a short distance from the intersection with the Sabanas Highway, about 3:15 a.m.
Yeah,
Tuesday, May 5th.
it was called
One
El
of the injured
Polvorín.
died on Wednesday, making the number of fatalities 9. The building was a
Okay.
relic of the early history of the city and served during that period as a fortified outpost. It was built by a wall and provided watchtowers and turrets, and it had been used as a storehouse for explosives and was
Yes,
known as El Polveria.
El Polvorín, which is basically
Perforin.
polvorín is gunpowder. and that's
Okay.
what it was known as. It was a place that stored the gunpowder.
So the explosives, powder and dynamite were set off by a fire, and it also burned two wooden lean-tos that were attached, and then it goes on and said the concussion produced by the explosion was felt over a wide area. It awoke the greater part of the inhabitants of Panama City, Ancon, and environs, and it appeared to have startled um, an effect in Culebra, Empire, and other towns. The shock was nearly as pronounced at Naos Island, which is Causeway.
Wow.
The explosion completely destroyed the powder magazine, tore up a great hole and ground which it stood, and sent large pieces of rock hundreds of yards away. Did considerable damage in shattering windows and twisting doors in Panama and Ancon. And the soap factory, a butter factory, Plaza de Toros, and other buildings were severely suffered. Windows broken, and then the killed, which, with the exception of two, were uh, members of the Panama Paid Fire Department who
Yep.
were endeavoring to extinguish the fire when the explosion occurred. The two others were a man who was employed as a caretaker of the Plaza de Toros and his wife who lived on the premises. They had left their rooms with the three children and gone into the boxes, evidently for the purpose of witnessing the fire, and they were killed by masses of flying rock, but the children escaped uninjured. All killed were given a public funeral, and the proceeds of one of the largest, or the processions of one of the ever largest seen in Panama. President Porras issued a decree proclaiming it a day of mourning in the federal district, calling upon businessmen to close their stores. Flags were displayed at half mast, and so this plaza was named in memory of the dead and this explosion. I never had heard about that.
Yeah, me
Anything
neither.
like that. And then I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago. I think it was in like Beirut.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There was like an explosion at the port,
Yes.
It
and you
was the
could see
biggest,
that big explosion and
Massive
all the
explosion.
things
biggest
shaking and stuff.
explosion ever.
Yeah.
It was probably something, like that.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure. Absolutely.
um,
Yeah, I had read about that once before. There's an Instagram channel I subscribe to called Panama Vieja Escuela, Panama Old School,
yeah,
and some interesting stuff like that. But yeah, that was amazing. And now, can you think of those poor firemen? Think of the bravery that
yeah,
they know what's in that building,
sure,
and they're trying their hardest to put that out, knowing full well that just one little spark or flame and you're done. And that's exactly what happened. But that's
yeah,
when you look at these professions, man, you really think this is
yeah,
often what they're going through. And back
yeah.
then, it was probably even much worse.
So now I feel bad that I didn't know that story,
Right?
and I
Well, you don't
avoided
know
that
what you don't
area.
know. Well, but
You know,
but you're honoring it now, which is good.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
helping
yeah,
us
yeah.
learn about it so that we can all appreciate what that
Right.
place stands for.
So
So that was Cinco de Mayo. That's why it's called Cinco de Mayo, for that explosion.
because the explosion happened on May 5th.
There you go. So on Mondays, then, when you guys are all celebrating Cinco de Mayo, a little bit of
Yeah,
a
and
little
of
bit of
course
solemnness.
I know it because it seemed like all the riots always kind of seemed to happen around in that area,
Yeah,
and then the Pan Am building and stuff was
sure.
burned there and stuff like that. So
So it's easy
I
to
always
associate the two.
I associated with that
Yeah, for sure. That
because
makes
that's all I
sense.
knew.
Of course. Yeah, no, you're right. We probably all thought the same thing as well. We certainly didn't think that at all, that it would have been
Yeah,
this, not knowing that.
yeah. So the other interesting thing when you go and you read the record, then it's the little thing like right underneath this story. Go up, back
Oh,
up one more.
sorry.
Um, Annual dinner of 1904 men. You see that down on the bottom?
Okay, yeah.
And I'd never heard of this either. The seventh annual dinner of the members of the Society of the Incas. Like, what the heck is that?
Wow.
Composed almost exclusively of canal employees and others who term service with the Panama Canal and Panama Railroad began during the year 1904. So it was the original,
Bizarre.
not the Roosevelt Medal owners that
Yeah.
worked for 2 years. It was the original workers.
And
This
now, Dave, what was the significance of the Incas? What is that? Where's the connection there to Panama?
I don't know. It doesn't tell me, but I have something to go figure it out.
Okay, yeah.
But they had a society. I mean, I know they have a Society of the Chagres, and basically that's Roosevelt Medal owners that had at least two bars.
Okay, okay. But the association
Yeah,
makes sense, the Chagres River
right.
and the canal. But the Inca, it's interesting
Yeah,
because the only association would be the gold trade back in the day.
perhaps, but
You know?
I'll have to look at it. But
Yeah, interesting.
but this is where reading these old records, there's so much information in
Right.
there, and everything can be a journey to go find what that is.
Absolutely.
Okay,
And
so
again, guys, anytime you want to look any of that stuff up, go to the Pan Canal Museum collection. The website's on the screen there.
Right.
But check them out, guys, because they have so much digitized
Okay.
info for the zone, guys. And really,
All right.
it's an awesome place.
So then, like we're talking about the Cinco de Mayo Plaza, I always think of it as go to the next one. When I read articles like this, 6 dead, 45 wounded, U.S. guns halt Panama mobs, and this is the riots of '64, and that's kind of all I really knew. I didn't know that there were riots in '59.
Right. Right. That's the one we always associate with.
Yeah, I only knew about the flag issue type of thing. So I just put this in here as there were, it
And now,
there's no
wasn't 4th
association
of
with
July
this.
Avenue called Avenida de los Mártires, which
Yeah.
was the Martyrs Avenue?
Right,
So
right,
again,
right,
that
right.
area, that's why we associate Cinco de Mayo Plaza
Right.
with it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean we can't learn the right history.
No, you're right, absolutely. Which is why
Yeah.
we're fortunate, guys, every first Friday of the month to have our Canal Zone
Yeah.
historian that finds
Right.
this out for us.
Okay. So that's why I want to talk a little bit about this 1959 stuff that was happening.
Yes.
Riots in the 50s. And because I really wasn't know about that. My neighbor, I was telling you, she said, she was in school and they, basically had to go flee for their lives and stuff. And
Right.
I'm like,
That's
what?
crazy.
I didn't know anything about riots in the 50s and stuff. But we've talked about before, Eisenhower coming to Panama in the 50s. And then the Panamanian president Chiati came up to Washington, D.C. and started talking about stuff. And apparently Eisenhower's brother said like the U.S. is going to, grant Panama its sovereignty or something like that. And then there was like, well, no, he didn't say that, and he doesn't speak for the U.S. and all this type of stuff. But
like a Billy Carter.
Billy Carter, yeah, or any number of things. But but they did sign a treaty in '55, and we talked. That's how the Thatcher Ferry Bridge came out of, that type of stuff.
Right.
And there was there were other things going on in the world. The Go to the next one. Well, this is basically the 1955 treaty.
Okay.
Where they're signing that type of stuff and making movements. The next one is this Suez Canal.
Yeah.
The Suez Canal was built also by de Lesseps. He was a friend of he was a diplomat in Egypt, and was basically given the contract to build the Suez Canal, and so he built that. And the Suez Canal was built by basically conscripted labor.
Yeah.
Nasser said, "Hey, I need 100,000 men to go dig
Y'all start digging. Go.
Start digging, yeah." And so the labor was like free labor.
Yeah, pretty much.
and do it, and then they ended up having troubles, and the Suez Canal became like possession of France and English.
Yes.
But in 1956, it was like, hey, we need to stop this French and English colonialism, and we want our canal. And that kind of started Panama also saying, "Hey, if Egypt can do it, we can do it." And
Certainly.
so there's this, the Suez Crisis, and there's UN resolutions about colonialism, and there's movements, and there's other underlying currents going on. There was also, going to the next one, in late 1959, there were, um, um, basically the first flag issue. They had said, "Hey,
Yeah.
look, you had agreed to put the flag flying in some of these locations, and you're not doing it." And and that was really the start of the first riots in '59.
Sure.
And
I gave him cause.
um, and it was because, again, you weren't putting the flag on in certain locations that you said that you would do. And just like anything, there were like the president says to do it, you should do it. But then there's other people in the government that don't think it's a good idea to do. They're not going to do it.
Right.
So um,
There was a lot of symbolism to that.
yeah, it shows weakness. It does this or
Sure.
whatever. But um, it didn't happen. So what happened? It got people agitated, and there were probably a bunch of agitators there already
Oh yeah.
that didn't need agitation. But here's
Nope.
an excuse.
Yes, sir.
But
Gas on the
so
fire.
this issue with sovereignty and the flag, it started in the mid to late '60s easily.
Yeah.
And so I just go on to the next one, and this of course 1964, and this is what I always remember. The
Yeah.
students wearing their uniforms, marching, and all that stuff. But there was other stuff before this, and I wasn't
And there's
really
the
that
burned out
familiar
Pan
with
Am
it.
building there.
That's the Pan Am building, right? So,
Yeah.
but if you go on to the next
And
slide.
real quick, just so if
Mhm.
people are curious as what that angle is, if you remember coming down 4th of July Avenue, that building there, 4th of July Avenue is directly on the other side of that building. And that was a really, really sharp turn you would make there. It was almost like a U-turn you would
Yep.
do there to then
Right.
come down this road, which would then take you like to Central and all that stuff
Yeah.
back
Well,
that
if
edge.
you see that Cobra light on the right, that's Canal Zone.
Yes, correct. Correct.
And then 4th of July is between the light and the building.
And so to the right of this, directly to the right of this image, if you turn and look to the right 90 degrees, that's about where that big bus depot was,
Yeah,
where the
exactly.
buses would
Right,
pull
right,
into
right.
in the zone.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a good picture.
So, yeah. But in 1959, there were protests and stuff, and it's like the same area, and there's a
Yeah.
bunch of people, but none of them are wearing uniforms, right?
Correct.
These are just like everyday people out there.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't look like students.
Yeah, and then you go. These next were images I got off of a video that's Path, black and
Okay.
white,
Yeah.
because I can't find images of this.
Yeah.
But you can see there's people running across the street. There's that Pan Am building area. Go home, Gringos. Back
Yeah.
then, these two people in the front almost look like they could be GIs or something. But
Right.
the next one says Viva Castro.
How about that? There you go. There's your
And there's always, I read these things about, there were university professors that were like pro-communists that were
very much
stirring up
Marxist.
things.
Absolutely. Sure
And
thing.
then right by Napoli was the institute, the school, and they had like a gymnasium right along
Mhm.
4th of July Avenue, and they always had the soldiers with the bayonets painted on the
Yes.
side of it. And then of course you see these images, and this is where that comes from. I mean,
Oh
maybe it's
yeah.
from '59, maybe not '64, maybe
Well, you
they.
think about it, in '59, the Soviet Union has had a satellite starting to come into play with Cuba, and
Yep,
you're
right.
thinking, hey, here's our opening to Central
Yeah.
America and Latin America.
Well, yeah. We'll get into some things, but Cuban Missile Crisis and stuff. The
That's right
U.S.
around the
was
corner.
running U-2 spy planes out of Albrook,
Yes,
and they
they
would go
were.
to Cuba. So I was thinking, well, those images that we always see about or Russian missile launchers and stuff like that, were those taken by the U-2 planes that came out of Panama?
Sure. And then there wasn't the internet to upload them, so they probably had to fly
Right.
back, land in Panama, unload it, put it on a plane to fly up to Washington.
I don't know. They might have had stuff down here, but anyway. But you can see they've got there's the street. You've got the soldiers there holding them back with bayonets, and then just got a couple more.
And what's interesting is they're not holding a Panama flag there. It's not a U.S. flag. It's like a banner, but it just seems like it's. Who knows? Maybe there's writing on it just to film.
I don't know what color it
there.
is, but it shows up in the next image as well.
Yeah, interesting.
But there was no fence back then in the 50s. That fence that they put up that you see in the Life magazine and all that stuff was probably put up after these events.
Sure.
And that's a big border. And one of the things that I read about the treaty and whether or not the U.S. should negotiate and stuff is that there was one estimate that said it would take 100,000 troops to protect the Canal Zone from this type of stuff.
Uprising.
Because you think about it, there's no border wall, there's no fence. It's 24 hours a day. You just can't go 9 to 5 and put a couple.
Absolutely.
And so they were saying it's 100,000. That's what about a third of our military force now, right? I mean.
Yeah, so even that could start triggering thoughts of, hey, is it really worthwhile protecting this Panama Canal?
Exactly. So, and they had a couple of rounds of this. They went through about what how many people come out, how difficult is it to do. And I also talked in the past where the Panama, the Guardia stuff were saying, hey, we don't have enough people to control of this, so you need to help us out. We need some.
Well, there's even history back in the 1920s where the U.S. troops went into to quell unrest in Panama City because the Panamanians military police couldn't do it. So it's recognized back then that the population here is difficult to contain and control.
Right. So then the next one, it's tear gas.
They look like Canal Zone police there.
Yeah, the guy's got his billy club and stuff. But that's not sustainable. You can't do that 24 hours a day for a week or 2 weeks or 2 months or 10, 20 years.
Right.
So the next one has they got the fire hoses trying to get people out. And you can see the Canal Zone is right there on the other side of the road.
It sure is. I wonder where that. I wonder if that's near the admin building.
No, I think this is right along 4th of July. It's it's probably closer to the courthouse.
Okay, interesting.
It's a little flatter over there.
I'd be interested to find out where that was taken in the angle there.
That looks like it's just right past the Panama train station. The one what we call Panama train station, not the old one.
The one by Frangipani.
And
and that road that came along like that, it would go up to the hotel.
Right. Yeah. It's.
Yeah, that could be it.
Somewhere between like where Graham Morrison is, all the way around to Frangipani. Yeah, that would make sense.
Huh.
And then here again, this is like that bus depot area. It is all right across the street from the Tivoli Hotel. Tivoli was there. And then this next image, this looks like the street that crosses over to where like Graham Morrison was and Con Inn, right?
Yes, correct. And if you go to the right, that's Gorgas Hospital.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I start seeing all these images and it's like, I've never seen these before.
Yeah.
59, right? 59, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before all
and
the
then the other
interesting
interesting part when I start reading about this is that you go to the next image. And then there's a ceremony, like a couple days later.
Hey, just
got a marching band.
All right.
And then the next image, is they've got the Panamanian flag and the American flag flying right next together, and this is like right where the Tivoli is.
Yeah, and there's 2 flagpoles there. You can see.
Yeah. And it's like were there 2 flagpoles there the whole time, or did you just put one up?
That's an awfully quick construction job to put up 2 flagpoles.
And they match too. So
that's what I'm saying.
Well, maybe it was like was someone just being really obstinate about doing this
Right.
or what the heck. But
We're the United States. Hell no, we're not
yeah,
doing that.
but all these things that were going on. I mean, they started in the 50s,
Yeah.
and whether it. But I never heard about the troubles in the 50s.
Sure.
Um, so that's interesting
Yeah,
for
it sure
me.
is.
And that's all I really have on it because I can't find any stuff. I mean, sure, there's plenty of stuff out there, just didn't come on. But when I look for images on Google and stuff, that's all I got were these path videos that are like a minute long. And all they have is music to them. They don't say anything. But then
Huh.
at the same time, have you ever heard about the Cuban invasion?
The
In
Cuban
Panama?
invasion.
Yeah.
I heard of one like in the 90s.
I love David. No, David, we haven't heard that one. Let me see.
The invasion that failed.
Wow.
What the heck? I thought they were referring to the Panamanians
1959.
rioting.
And what apparently 87 Cubans landed on Nombre de Dios with an attack force. And this video that they're reading
Dude, the
says
guns
that
hadn't
members
even
of the
cooled from Cuba yet.
OAS went there and like rounded them up.
Oh, darn, these people hadn't even taken over Cuba just barely yet, and they're already running around in Panama.
Yeah.
86 guys with the U.S. military presence there. Is that Che Guevara there?
I don't know. It looks like them, doesn't it?
It looks like him.
Sure does.
He probably convinced them. Yeah, we'll get Panama.
But you read about the Russian influence, the Cuban influence, and all of that agitation, and you can see the results were those previous images. People were upset because that flag wasn't. And part of it was Chadi when he went up to Washington, and he basically said, "Hey, you guys signed this treaty and you agreed to do these things. You're not really living up to your
Correct
word. That's all we're asking for."
Yeah, that's it.
And then, basically they were getting the FU, it's like, no wonder. I mean,
yeah,
whether you think they're right or not, when you tell somebody you can't do something, they're going to.
Yeah, it makes you understand some of the animosity then.
Yeah. But this, images of some of the soldiers that they rounded up and keep on going,
Okay.
they definitely look Cuban, right?
Yeah, that's certainly that Cuban
It's
style
like, I
hat.
never heard of that Cuban invasion, send an invasion force. I've heard of Bay of Pigs.
Yeah.
But I never heard
these
that the Cubans sent
definitely look
troops
Cuban.
to Panama or whatever.
And these were
However,
Castro's troops, right? Not the guy before, Bautista.
No,
these
because
are
hell, he
Castro.
wouldn't listen. If he was still around, he certainly wouldn't be sending stuff to Panama.
Yeah.
He needed
And then
everything at home.
But we saw in the images before, like Viva Castro, even. So there was,
Yeah,
it's just like any
more than just a
revolution.
coincidence.
You're gonna maybe there's only 10% of the population that support it, but still, that's 10%.
Yeah, and still some.
You got
coordination there.
100,000 people. That's 10,000 people. That's still
significant.
That's a decent amount.
significant. Then you get one of them to bring a sign to a rally, so it's that's what you're going to take a picture of, right?
Oh yeah.
So
create a
I
narrative.
just thought those were interesting things that
That's
were going
very
on in that
interesting.
time.
Yeah.
And we
different
just
kind of riot than what we knew.
and I wasn't born during that time, and never grew up really learning about
Yeah. No,
any of this.
You're absolutely right. That's
All
good,
right.
Good
So
stuff.
then I got a couple of where am I's. We're gonna
Right,
change the
let's go.
subject.
Where are we?
I'm pretty good at this. Let's go.
All right.
All right. And all right.
Take
So
a pass on this one.
these have the answers already in them. But I saw these pictures, and we had the corral that we called it.
We can
in-
fix that. We can fix that.
in Balboa. Remember?
All right.
You remember the motor pool area being
Yeah.
called the corral?
I didn't remember it being called that, but okay, interesting. And I would.
I
Make
remember
sense
when we used to
why.
take the Braniff flights.
Yeah.
We would, get up. We need to go to the corral.
Okay, I know. I don't remember hearing
We
that.
didn't call
but
it the
that's
motor
interesting.
pool. We called it the corral.
Yeah, we
And,
called it
Drummond,
MTV.
good to see you.
All right, really.
but back in the day, when they had horse and wagons and
It
stuff
would
like
make
that,
sense.
they actually had a corral.
Yeah.
Then they
right.
got
You have
replaced
to.
with vehicles.
Sure.
But this one is an image of the corral in Cristobal. And of
Okay.
course, I didn't grow up in Cristobal, but apparently they had one there too.
Well, yeah. Well, you need
Not
one.
just Balboa.
It's awful long walk to put your horses in a pen.
Yeah.
50
So
miles.
I still don't know where this is, but the one in Balboa was right across from the Ancon train station and
All right.
stuff.
Well, our Atlantic side connection, Vern Couturier, is on here. Vern, what's up, man? Step up here and throw this one out there, man. See what you know.
Yeah, did you
Give us
still
some
call it the
visuals.
corral?
Yeah, right. All right. Let's see here. Let me find out here. Well, we're on a bit of a lag there, but that'd be interesting. So we'll have to come back to that one if he finds out there. But
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. And then when you start thinking about, gold and silver and skilled jobs and not skilled jobs, probably being working in the corral wasn't a gold wage job.
No, I wouldn't think so.
So there were always like classes of work levels. Um, maybe the driver was, but not the guy riding in the back. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
So I just came across this image, and I had never seen it before. And I didn't know they had a corral on the Atlantic side. Now that makes sense that they would, but
Sure.
but I don't know where it is. So
Interesting.
So I'm asking for myself,
Yeah.
where am I?
And this one's interesting. That on that wagon
That's a
there
tough
is a
one.
big giant block of ice.
The next
Is
one,
that-
yeah.
Oh yeah, the Raspal guy. But like,
Well, you see where it says ice
Oh.
delivery.
Yeah,
Well,
ice delivery wagon in front
Well,
of
they
cold.
used back behind the Balboa commissary was the ice plant.
Yes, correct.
Right.
Oh yeah. We always stopped
This
there.
is
with a
this is the
very curved-
one I believe is on the Atlantic side.
Which would be Mount Hope, wouldn't it? Didn't Mount Hope have the big, massive cold
but,
storage?
But it's a big block of ice,
Yeah, sure is.
and they
That's a
would
big block, dude.
have to go deliver it to wherever, I don't know, to people's houses or wherever, to the restaurants or
Yep, you just cut a big piece out of it and
exactly.
that's so cool.
And a piece of ice that big won't melt.
No.
In 30 minutes being out in that hot
No,
sun.
no.
But
The last delivery might be a little bit
That's how they
soft,
got the idea for Raspal.
Yeah, because that's what they had was a big block of ice.
Big block, yeah. So, I always used to like going to the ice plant.
And that was always a cool sound, that Raspal, just the way he'd put the thing in and clack, 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 and throw it. And
But
That
at the
was
Balboa
cool,
ice plant, we would go there before we went out, like fishing in the lake,
right?
and get a block of ice, and they'd throw it in that ice crushing machine, and where the guy would chip off the block, 5-pound block, and
Big
throw it in
pincers.
there. Yeah, the big pinch, right. Throw that stuff around.
Good old
It's, now you just go grab a plastic bag out of the freezer, right?
It was behind the commissary, in between the back of the commissary and the toy store.
Yeah,
It was like a little ramp that you went up in there.
Yep.
That's right.
So I just thought these were cool pictures. I don't know exactly where this might be in Mount Hope. I don't know, but
Here you go. The Atlantic side right there, Vern.
Kind of seeing this big block of ice. I've never seen an image like that. In all the images I've seen, there's
No, me neither.
a big ice truck.
Big Raspadero.
Original motor
Yeah.
pool. Okay, cool. So Vern said it might have moved over to by Mount Hope then, the original motor pool. Cool. Right on. Thanks, Vern. Appreciate that.
Right on, Vern.
Mm-hmm.
Right on.
So you guys are learning like me. I don't know.
Yeah,
everything.
absolutely.
That's why we're on this show, man. That's
what we do by the first Friday of the month, man, because otherwise you'll forget that shit by the end of the month.
We've got a little bit more to do, but this I thought was pretty cool. Charles Lindbergh, and this kind of got to my attention because someone was selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace, and it was first airmail.
Okay.
And Charles Lindbergh, and I knew Lindbergh had been there before. I have a friend that was his dad was really enthralled with Lindbergh and was able to see him when he came down.
Oh wow, that's cool.
The Panama, and then he wanted to go see the Spirit of St. Louis at the National Air Museum or something like that. So, but
which, by the way, guys, interesting fact about that Spirit of St. Louis, no front windshield on it.
Right.
You had to look out the sides when you were flying that thing. It was no front windshield; it was all metal.
But Lindbergh he made that trip New York to Paris May 21st, 1927. So it's this month. So
Oh, right
I
on.
won't be presenting before May
Right.
21st. So I gotta put the Panama connection into this,
Yeah, heck yeah.
right?
Makes sense.
So in May 21st, 1927, he flies cross Atlantic, first one to do that.
That's now he becomes famous.
Becomes famous, and then in December of that year, he becomes a Goodwill ambassador and does a Latin American tour.
Nice.
So he leaves from Washington, D.C. on December 14th, 1927, and he flies down to Mexico, British Honduras, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Cuba. It's like 7 countries. And so he makes it to Panama January 9th through 12th, 1928.
Nice.
And so I'll talk a little bit about that. But what I didn't know is that he came to Panama 3 times.
Wow.
He flew
okay.
in January. He flew the Spirit of St. Louis on this Latin American tour. But then he came back the following year, flying the first airmail from Miami to
Wow.
Panama.
Interesting.
Canal Zone, man.
And that's
Charles
what.
Lindbergh.
Then Pan Am starts service, or had service going to Latin America, Panama, and they started doing mail, and so he flies a plane Pan Am and delivers mail. So he comes back a third time in
Wow.
April of 1930.
And that was probably a way to raise awareness of Pan Am services. Bring
He
Charles
had
Lindbergh on
to
the
have a
plane.
Exactly.
Canal Zone
I mean,
girlfriend.
and Lindbergh was a rock star back then. I
Yeah,
mean,
100%. 100%.
Canal Zone girlfriend. That's the only thing that would bring a rock star like that 3 times back.
Napoli pizza, I think it was. But
Napoli's, and he had like a Kelly Morris or something like that in the Canal Zone.
But I didn't know he came back. I didn't know he came to Panama 3 times. So
Right, I didn't know he came 1 time, let alone 3.
So we'll go do a little history tour here.
Yeah.
So this is how it got started. Is so basically, hey, I sold these letters from Charles Lindbergh's flight to Miami, 1929. First airmail from Panama. Like, that's pretty cool. So these are some of the things that were being sold. Go on to the next one. And this one is a postcard.
Look at that.
And this guy writes, "Hey sis, please keep this card for me. It's coming up in the first airmail from Panama."
Wow.
And it's dated, February 10th, 1929, from Cristobal, Canal Zone. And so somebody did. They not. It's like our Al Sprague last day of issue stamps. We
And you can
we
see
mailed.
the name and the address up there, the return address. It looks like it's a J.G. Scott, Coca-Cola, box 1244, Coca-Cola Canal Zone.
Yeah, and then they've got the stamp in there of the Culebra cut with the Spirit of St. Louis or something flying through it.
That is so cool. Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Someone, did a souvenir to themselves, and then the next one is similar
Sure
thing. It also went from Cristobal, same day, 1929, and it's got the stamp on there, first airmail flight. And then the next one, shows that it made it to Miami on the bottom. You can see it, Miami, Florida. So that was the first.
And then it
first
picks
thing.
up, and there's another
So-
stamp for Newark.
Yep.
Where it ultimately ended up going to. That's
Right.
cool, man.
Yeah, pretty cool. So
And Charles Lindbergh's involved. Who would have figured? If I mean, why would you think that Charles Lindbergh, somebody that's now, like you said, a rock star, and here he's delivering mail? But then again, back then, delivering mail was a prestigious thing for the airlines. The thought of
airlines
passengers
airplanes were new.
correct, and mail was the moneymaker. It wasn't
Yeah,
passengers,
sure,
and
right.
so that was
Yeah.
prestige.
Sure. Like the Panama steamship companies were mail carriers. They would get
Yeah.
funds from the U.S. government to carry the mail and stuff, and that's how they
Yeah.
stayed
Uncle
afloat.
Sam is always, and the American people in general, has always loved and respected the mail, man. That's always been a high priority thing. Is mail.
All right. So, so I went and I found some newspaper articles about the trip, and so this is from January 9 through 12, 1928, where he comes and he lands at Francfield,
There you
which they
go.
also called Campo Limburg.
Of course, it makes sense.
And there's a YouTube link if you want to see a video. I don't know if you can click on that link and go and see it. It's a very short
I can't, but let me see
film,
if I can pull it up here.
but but basically, U.S. airman flies from Costa Rica in 4 hours. So he is coming down from Mexico and British Honduras, but he had spent a couple days in San Jose, and so that's why he's coming from Costa Rica. And then it says that he's on a goodwill um, ambassador from the U.S. Lindbergh landed in on the field here today and named in his honor Campo Limburg. I never knew that there was a Campo Limburg
I
in
know,
the
right?
Canal Zone. He landed at 1:51 in the afternoon, and that the field was thronged with spectators, and there was an immediate rush for the Spirit of St. Louis, which taxied up to the grandstand, and then President Chiari and numerous high officials of the government, Colonel Harry Burgess of the governor of the Canal Zone, and Brigadier General Graves, U.S. Army, awaited him. So pretty cool.
That is
I
really
don't know
cool,
if you
man.
can. You can.
I'm trying to type it in here. I think I
Uh,
got it. Let me just give me a second here. Dash, what is it? Okay, because it's case sensitive apparently. See.
Campo Lindbergh. You said that was Franceville, or that was on the Pacific side?
Yeah, it won't even let me go
Francfield.
to that
Franceville.
site.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
fixing that
I
airport
have
right
a. I have an image, and I can't exactly tell where it is where he landed in on the Pacific side, but
Let me search because that link won't pull anything up.
so all right. Well, click on the next one if you can.
There you go.
So this
Yeah,
one, this
that's
is
the biggest
this is
Oh,
picture.
here we
this
go.
is Francfield. This
I've
is
seen that.
Campo Limburg.
Yeah. And
So
I've got it right here. I did stand by.
so you can kind of see the plane where it kind of taxied into this area where people could see it, and then they had a grandstand. I guess people could hear him speak, and you see all the cars, people lined up. Is it gonna go?
Oops, did it go? Oops.
It's amazing how many things happen in Panama throughout history. Like the first astronauts to the moon practice in Panama.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So here it is, guys. Here's that video.
You see, there's no sound on these things,
No,
so
but
but
there
here
it
it is
is.
flying in.
Look at that. That's amazing. See how look? There's no windshield on the front of that thing.
Nope.
You gotta look out the side, and yet he's running a straight line with it. How about that? There is. Got to be the guy, tall guy there, because Lindbergh was pretty tall.
Yeah, so there's the plane going in, and you can see it in the image that we have up on the screen where they ended up parking.
That's awesome.
And this has to be, it's probably a different day. And this is like,
Sure.
I don't know if it's Central or down Cologne, but
True.
a parade for them and stuff. But there's a lot of people. They're all running next to the car and stuff. I mean, everyone in the balconies look like.
It shows you what a global hero this guy was, because these guys are cheering him on big time.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Look
that's
at
a
that.
mob, man. That's amazing. And these are all Panamanians.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So yeah, it's very short, but it's one of those things that how would you ever find that if you're not
Yeah, no
like
kidding,
looking
man.
for it?
No
So let's
kidding.
go on to the next one. And there's just another picture. This go to the next one. It says it's France Field. I guess
Okay.
there's some houses. Um,
Well, they certainly look more like the Canal Zone style.
Yeah,
building.
right. And then this other image I found on Facebook. It's flying over Cologne, and you can barely see the plane. I circled it there, but I really love that shot looking down through the canal, and you can see like the diversion.
Yeah. Now, what I'm curious of is where's that picture taken from? A
Another
balloon or
plane.
something?
Another plane.
Could be, yeah. I mean, not that many planes out in the world, but I guess, yeah. I guess that would
Yeah,
make sense.
there's pictures where you see 2 or 3 planes, like
okay.
following behind them.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess that would make sense. You're not going to do
Yeah,
it
they're
all in
taking
one plane.
pictures.
Yeah.
Sofa Hill.
Yeah, but this next one, that's another plane taking that picture.
Certainly. Yeah. No
And you can see all the stumps.
Yep.
And the Gatun Lake and stuff. I mean, but you look at it and you're like, that's AI.
Because of the stuff.
That didn't happen. You're like, yeah, it did. He went to Panama. I was like, what? I didn't know he went to Panama.
Right. In the spirit of St. Louis, you're like, that doesn't fit there.
Yeah,
that should be in Paris.
Because here it is. He flew to Paris in March or May of that year.
Right.
And in by 1930, the plane is in the museum.
Yeah.
So it wasn't out long.
No. So Panama was one of the few places it visited.
Yeah. So then we go on the next one, and then this.
Oh, Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo.
There you go.
Yes.
And they probably renamed it Lindbergh Plaza for that day too.
Mm-hmm. But look at all the people. Look at all the people, man.
Yeah. That is
all the way
amazing.
down.
Yeah.
And again, you're talking about an era that wasn't the internet era, and yet this guy was still recognized down there as somebody very, very famous.
Yeah, it just happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 6 months before.
Yeah.
So then the following year, go on the next one.
Look at even the sign up there, Bienvenido Lindbergh.
Yeah, it would be Bienvenido, right? But I don't know if that's Cologne or if that's Panama City. But
right.
But then the next year, February, he comes back, and he flies the first airmail to Panama. So those cards that we saw earlier, was from this trip. So you have to know which trip he came. Did he come 1, 2, or 3? The first one he didn't carry mail. The second and the third one he did.
Well, and you notice that here the date line on that is February 6th, and that's the arrival to Cologne.
Right.
And then the other ones we saw the postmark was February 10th. So he was down there a couple of days and then headed back up.
Right. Yeah, because he was on the Atlantic side. He came over the Pacific side.
Yeah.
And then he flew back. And when he actually flew back, he went to Cuba and then flying to Miami.
Oh, right on.
And he was 300 miles off course.
Wow.
He was like over the Bahamas. Man. He almost went
in the Bermuda Triangle there.
He almost didn't fare too well.
No doubt.
So
dropping stuff off.
So
North Carolina.
here's this is what the article says, and the next one is he landed at France Field at 4 today. He'd completed his first airmail delivery from the United States to the Panama Canal Zone, and then he flies tonight. So that would be on the 6th to Panama City, where he will dine aboard the battleship Texas.
Cool is that?
And sleep on the aircraft carrier Saratoga.
That's awesome.
And then he returns back to France Field, so that would have been the 10th, and then he goes
right on
back up there. But can you imagine, man?
What a stud, man! What a cool gig.
Mm. So then we got some pictures from that first airmail flight, and like you can see the other planes following behind them. And this isn't the Spirit of St. Louis, because this is a mail plane, right?
Sure.
So, and then the next one is
he leaves Miami on the 4th in the morning.
Yeah.
So he had to have obviously stopped, like you said, maybe on the way down and went to Cuba.
Havana.
Okay.
Yeah. Back then we could stop in Havana.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
Or British Honduras, that type of so.
Sure.
So then this next one is he's given a speech at the bottom of the hill at admin building.
The admin sure is.
Yeah.
Sure is. Look
So,
at that.
could you imagine when we're in high school and stuff and we're learning about some of this stuff? You can say he was right there. We never had any of
Well,
that
when we
stuff.
had our senior pictures on the admin steps, you're like,
Yeah.
hey, this is right where Lindbergh was doing his thing.
Lindbergh, but there's so many other people, General Pershing, and
You're right.
all these people
Such a famous place.
got
George Washington's brother went through Panama.
It
Right.
it was he was in the Navy and he fought um in some battles off of Nombre de Dios and Portobello and Fort San Lorenzo.
Huh. How about
And
that?
the man that he served under was by the name Admiral Vernon.
Okay.
And so when he got back to Virginia, he named his estate after
Oh, that's where Mount Vernon comes from.
Mount Vernon comes. And then
How
George
about that?
Washington acquired that property from his brother.
Oh, okay.
All Canal Zone related.
There you go. See?
So
6 degrees of separation.
all right, so this next one is the Spirit of St. Louis hanging in the
Smithsonian.
yep.
Yep. I've
And
seen that. That's pretty cool.
so you can go see it there now, but when you look closely at the flags that are
Ah,
on
good
on
eye.
it,
Look at you.
you see which
There we
one is
go.
there?
That's right.
Panama.
That's right. Heck yeah.
So did you know the Spirit of St. Louis had a Panamanian flag?
How about that?
It would be hanging in the windshield if you had one.
Oh, that is awesome.
And just to think, they're getting mad because a U.S. ship went through the canal without the Panamanian flag.
You know what's disappointing though? It doesn't have a Canal Zone seal on there.
Yeah, that is disappointing.
It does have a U.S. flag, but there's no Canal Zone seal. It should have a Canal Zone seal.
Unfortunately, it's hanging up in rafters of those. Otherwise, I'd go to the Smithsonian and see if I could sneak up and
Stick
throw a
one on
sticker
there.
on
Just
it,
get
man.
a pellet gun and stick one up
Right?
there. Right? All right. So then the next year, April 1930, he arrives again at the Pan American Airport.
How about that?
And you know which one that is?
Is that Albrook?
I believe it is.
Okay, right on. Yeah,
Unless they had one on the Atlantic side too.
could be.
But you could see here it says that he arrived today at 3 p.m. and it shortens the mail route from Cristobal by way of Havana.
Okay.
So that was
so
that was a
Havana's still
stopping
refueling
point.
stop.
But I guess Havana was a very popular place for
Sure.
U.S. back then
Yeah,
too.
it absolutely was.
So the interesting thing about so this next slide, it's the postmaster Cristobal, greeting him or getting the mail and stuff, and that's Lindbergh on the right, and that's the plane. But you can see the engine is located above the fuselage and stuff. It's a really odd looking plane. The next one really shows it. It's the wing is like up above and the engines are up above and it's really strange looking. But this is when he's leaving. And you see the mailbags there in the thing. But the next one here's a picture with Juan Tripp.
Yes.
And he was the president
Mr.
of
Pan
Pan Am. And there was a movie about Pan Am that had the what's the brother I can't remember his name. Alec Baldwin played this man. And you would think they're going to show no, they didn't even talk about Panama in that movie.
Right.
But Pan Am, it ran the Clipper service and they ran out of the Albrook.
Yeah.
When that was a
that was the airport terminal. Sure was.
So that's basically my Lindbergh story.
Cool.
But it even has this Pan Am connection, and Pan Am was very famous, and they did business in the Canal Zone. We don't really ever hear about that. We knew that the Civil Affairs building was an airport, but we never realized that it was like a Pan Am airport.
Right.
And then the last thing is just kind of throwing this out there is that about this time too is that there was a Panama Canal airline where you could go from Atlantic to Pacific. That was
Inland
operating
Airways. How about that?
about that time, and
Look at
a
that.
lot of people don't know about that.
Yeah.
And so they would I think it was called the Folks River on the Atlantic side, which is close to France Field and stuff. So
Okay.
these were float planes, and they would fly there, and then they would fly to Balboa, and they would their dockage was basically where the sheds are in Diablo, by the
Oh, right on.
by the Pier 18.
Very cool.
So the next one shows a picture of the planes,
Look at that.
and this one says at the Hotel Washington. So I guess they're getting ready to do maybe a flight from Atlantic to Pacific,
Yeah.
Isthmian
That's so
Airways. And then the next one shows the Pacific. So the sheds that you see by the spinning club.
Okay.
At one point there were hangars for
seaplane
those
base.
seaplanes. Yep.
That's cool. And
So it's just
three
part of the
obviously
canal
the
zone
carriage.
that
Yeah.
was there. I never really knew any of that
No
stuff.
idea that we're
Good
hanging out the
parties
spinning
out
club
there,
and
I
that
can
used to
tell
be
you
an
that
airport.
much.
So yeah. So acquisition day to first mail, airmail. Just
to a Canal Zone airline.
Canal Zone
holy
Airlines,
cow,
right?
that's-
So
It's
just
an airline, yeah. It's been a
That's
great
awesome.
evening, Dave.
a lot of different things.
Yeah, indeed.
Thank
This
you very
is
much.
why we look forward to
Absolutely,
our
man.
first Fridays of every month, man, because there is so much Canal Zone information out there we just don't know, and even Panama information as well. But
Mhm.
like we just said, we hung out at that spinning club all the
Yeah.
time, and never in our wildest dreams did we realize that was a seaplane base, that was a
And
Canal Zone airline base.
and I gotta every time I do these things, I have to cut out so much stuff because it's like we already went over an hour and
Right.
20 minutes. And
Well,
it's like, there's
rest
no
assured,
way.
Dave, we're gonna, we're working on that CanalZone.me project, and we definitely want to put a Canal Zone history channel in there where we can go full Monty on these things and not be worried about these time constraints. Where you can have a lot of good content on there, man.
But still, but hopefully it's some things that you didn't know or maybe you knew, but it's hard finding. I put a lot of stuff together from a bunch of different places.
Right.
Because it's not, you might see one image, but then like I saw that postcard,
right,
but it doesn't tell you that Lindbergh came 3 times.
right.
And I was seeing these images, and I'm like, how is the Spirit of St. Louis in Panama? It's like that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and it shows the importance that Panama's always had because I mean, there are so many bigger trading partners and all kinds of places that Lindbergh and airmail would be involved in, and yet it's Panama and the Canal Zone that still plays a role with to your point, the biggest rock star in aviation in the world, and yet he's flying airmail to the Canal Zone.
I forgot to mention when the Spirit of St. Louis came to Panama, it said it got rebuilt by the military when it was there.
Interesting.
So he must have had some type of mechanical problem, and they fixed it for him.
Couldn't do that in Cuba. It had to go to Panama to do it. And them Zonian mechanics. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So I mean, can you imagine you're working? That's what you're working as a aircraft mechanic or a mechanic for
I would think
the Army, Air
If
Force.
I went a whole lot of aviation down there, you got a job.
And the Spirit of St. Louis comes in and says, "Hey, we need you to fix this stuff." I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, guy pops out the window. Hey, can you fix it? Look up, it's Charles Lindbergh. Yes, sir. Sure can.
But that's the stuff I really like finding out about. All these little extra things that happened and stuff. Like I didn't know he slept on the Saratoga.
Right.
Had dinner on the Texas or whatever.
Yeah, just the fact that they were there. You had a battleship and an aircraft carrier docked out.
But you've got to go to 15 different sources to find that stuff. It's not like there's not one.
Well, that's the beauty of
because
Happy
you just
Balboa Yacht Club. We have our own Canal Zone historian here, man. So it's if you want to learn this stuff and you don't want to look it up yourself, once a month come out here and you'll find it.
Yeah. I don't know it all, but I'm learning a lot.
Well, we're all learning a lot.
The whole community is.
Yeah.
And a lot of Panamanians that watch this have mentioned.
This is Panamanian history too. I mean, you can see all those people enjoying, Lindbergh coming and stuff.
Yeah.
the majority of the people there were Panamanian.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
really
it was a
was.
goodwill tour for Latin America, not for Canal Zone.
Correct, correct.
I mean,
But that was an obvious stop within the U.S. and
well,
everything
yeah, I
being there.
mean, it's sure.
But still, that was
Um,
it's a unique thing that's for somebody that's such a world class, world renowned person to do that. And to your point, do it not once, not twice, but 3 times in 3 different capacities.
yeah,
So maybe Ricky's
yeah,
right. Maybe he had a
and
little
you know,
side gig going there, man.
I would have loved to have my history book tell me that. You know, this that not only did he go to Paris, but he came here 3 times.
Yeah, right. No
He
doubt.
flew right over, right over the school.
All right. Well, Captain Andrew's asking you to a little bit of a follow up for that, which is find out which battleship Texas, because apparently there were several of them. So yeah, I'd be interested to find out which one. 1929, 28, 29. So be cool to find out.
Oh,
We'll
I'm sure
definitely
you
get.
can definitely find that out. There's got to be photos.
Yeah,
There's
for
got to
sure.
be photos of that
Yep,
somewhere. I
indeed.
mean, just now you got to start Googling. That's the problem with some of this stuff. You Google and you go down these other rabbit holes, and then you never like. I came here to find out something. Now I'm
Right now, what
three
the hell I'm doing
continents
over here
away
now?
from it.
Well, look what he's doing. A little follow commenter. One of them sunk in the Bay of Panama. Interesting. I didn't know that either. How about that? That an American battleship was sunk in the Bay in Panama. Huh.
Well, the Saratoga and the Yacht and the Yorktown, they used to do maneuvers off the base,
Correct.
and they would try to destroy each other, pretending to be the enemy, right?
Yeah.
One,
Well,
so
I mean, the canal was one of those things that was considered a vulnerable target, so you definitely want to learn to
mhm.
protect it and defend it.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure the Saratoga was there quite a bit
Yeah. No, indeed.
out there in the bay,
Yep.
but yeah, there's probably a lot of sunken stuff out there, and um,
Little by
yeah, I
little,
mean,
that's what we're learning. Every month, you guys tune in, we learn more and more and more about this. So,
yeah, there's an image I want to show at Captain Andrew. I'll have to send it maybe to him personally. It's the battleship, and it's going through the canal, and I swear it looks like it's going through the Banana Channel. It is so close to the land, and it's like that doesn't even look like there's enough room for another ship to pass. I have no idea where it is, but it looks like where I paddled my Cayuga through the Banana Channel.
well, those
It's like
battleships, I
there's
mean,
no
those
way they put a
dreadnoughts were
battleship through that.
gigantic ships, man. They were
So
massive, man. I remember when I think it was either the Iowa or the New Jersey docked in Pier 18. This was like in 1985, 84, someone like that. And I went on it because they allowed people to go on and check it out. Wow, that was impressive, the size of that. That's one of those things that you really
mhm.
have to see it in person to realize. Even just the guns, those
Yeah,
16-inch guns. God Almighty, those things are massive when you
yeah.
stand
I
underneath
remember
them.
going in the C5A at Howard. Man, my
Right?
God, that thing was huge. Of course,
Yes.
when you're 8 years old, everything's twice the size, right?
Of
So
course, of course. I remember seeing a C5 at McDill here at one of the air shows, and there's actually a ladder inside the tail that you can go all the way to the top, and people would get up there, and you can kick back up there way at the top of the tail on that thing. It's such a massive plane,
mhm.
but that's for
But
another day. So,
all right,
well,
so
hey,
yeah, some of the stuff I want to talk about in the future will be the '64 riots,
okay, right on.
and I have this desire to do one on Canal Zone school history,
Yes, that'd be good. We
but
need to do some with the
there's so
schools.
many schools, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's
Well,
amazing.
that might be a 2 or 3
And
part.
so I don't know
For,
what, but
And that might be
put in the
something.
comments what people want to hear about, if there's anything that
Yeah,
interests
and that's
them.
something. You're right. That's something we need to put out. I do need to. I want to put out a kind of a questionnaire anyway, and just to get some feedback on what
Yeah,
people want to see more of on the show, what they like, what they don't like, even
yeah.
and so forth. But
I've
to your point, I want to start getting feedback on what history you guys want to learn more about,
I
and send Dave
yeah.
on one of those
Yeah, Ricky, I've
searches.
got stuff on the Apollo program um, that I can do segments on. I also have been putting together things for like the Jungle Operation Training School,
Oh, cool.
yes, because that's
and
in the news
now
right
they got the Fort Sherman stuff, and but there are Facebook groups out there. Um, people that know that stuff probably be much better
Sure.
speakers about it because they lived it. but they post pictures about it, and they're fascinating. Absolutely, and it's kind of like you live there, but I'm not in the military. I've never been to Fort Sherman.
Correct.
Yeah, me
I've never
neither.
been, in the green hell. But how freaking cool would that have been
Right?
to go there on a weekend and be able to play army for a weekend or something?
Heck
Just
yeah.
it would have been amazing. But these guys did amazing things on those bases. And we probably have no idea what they ever did.
Yeah.
I look at the map of where Fort Sherman is. You have to cross the canal,
Yeah,
which now they have a bridge, but during our time, they had to cross the canal and then go around and out to that point. So they were really isolated.
right.
Yeah, no, and you talk about the things that they did out there and stuff. Remember Empire Range, you had all that artillery fire
Right.
out there. Every so
Yeah.
often you'd hear the boom, boom, boom and all that stuff. And I remember my dad telling me a story one time they had an errant round that went and landed in the pool in Paraiso and it blew up in there. And
Yeah.
at first they didn't know what had happened. And next, a couple of guys in the army show up, and my dad, of course, was the first one on station there to secure the area, and it turned out to be a mortar round that went the wrong way and went all the way
Yeah.
across the canal. And in fact, I put it out in one of the Facebook, I think a Fort Clayton group, and some people chimed in and said, "I remember that. Remember when that had happened?" And whatever, there was an investigation, or whatever. But it was the round itself misfired. It wasn't that it was aimed the wrong way.
Mhm.
It just somehow it misfired. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite a misfire to go from Empire Range all the way across
Yeah.
the canal
Well, I
to
think
Paraiso.
I can't remember if I talked about it before, but back when in the World War II area, when they had a bunch of mines that they'd put out in the harbor,
Mm-hmm.
and submarine nets and stuff like that, there was a like a tugboat that accidentally was caught up in one of those mines and exploded.
I remember you mentioned that, and that
And
hence the reason for the name, the Mine Dock, out there on the
well,
causeway.
yeah, I mean they would run the boats and stuff out there, but one of the canal ships, just misfortune, and
Yeah.
was was blown up by one of those mines and killed the crew, or at least part of the crew. And then I was just reading the other day that when they were building the trestle for the causeway, a
Right.
boat ran into the trestle and killed the crew, and it like took down the trestle and like 1,000 feet of track with it.
Rail line. Yeah, remember the
Yeah,
trestle? That was the rail line that went out to those islands.
yeah, right. So that was quite a collision,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's
Remember
like you
back
never
then,
hear
guys,
about the accidents and stuff. But
those ships, remember, couldn't pull all the way into Balboa. They had to stop there, and
mhm,
that's where they docked, and everything was offloaded there on those islands. And
mhm.
that's why they built that trestle initially, was to transport goods off
Yeah,
those
but during
islands.
the construction, somebody hit it and you got killed. So
Well, maybe that's why they decided, hey, we need a causeway.
yeah,
It's going to be cool, and we're going to have a Panama Day, song about
mhm.
it later on. So we'll just go ahead and build a causeway there. But anyhow, so again, listen, Dave, thank you so much. Again, we really appreciate you always taking the time. Not just Friday nights, but obviously you take a lot of time to your research. This isn't something that you do over in just a few minutes. So we're really, really appreciative of you doing this. I know everybody in the audience as well loves to hear it. I mean, we always get killer numbers for this, man, because you bring us some amazing Zonian information. So thanks again for doing it. Thanks for
All
taking
right,
the time to
guys.
do this. Have an awesome weekend. Enjoy Acquisition Day on Sunday, and your Cinco de Mayo celebratories on Monday, which are, of course, at our little plaza there, right? Not
Yeah,
Mexico.
no
So
no fireworks. All right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no fireworks. That's kind of disrespectful there. But anyhow, all right, Dave. Listen, have a great weekend. Thanks again, brother. Cheers.
All right. Good night.
Thanks, Dave.
See ya.
All right, man. Dude, once again, walk out of here newly educated on some other canals and stuff we had no idea about. It's
And guys, knowledge is power.
It
Just
sure
remember
is.
that.
It sure is. Absolutely. No, we love having it. It's always exciting this show. It's a long show when Dave comes on, but you know what? Everybody loves to hear it. The numbers don't drop. It's not like people get tired of it after a while. They're sticking around because it's really cool information of a place we all love and recognize. Looking at that seaplane base, every one of us can look at that and go, Spinning Club. I know that place, right? And that's what makes history is really cool if you like history, but when you can relate to it, at a different era, different period, it just makes it that much more fun to watch and learn about. So, we're fortunate to have Dave join us, man. It's really cool. It's always a good time, and it's something we look forward to. So can't wait for the next one, man. But we have some more cool stuff coming up, guys. We have, remember, coming up here this next week, we have Nordier Garcia. This guy has he has a show, or I guess you can call it a show, on Instagram, on Facebook. It's all about the Panama Railroad. So it's an amazing history, shows a lot of great pictures. And this guy's not from Panama originally, but he's really taken to liking that history, and he showcases it quite a bit. So we're excited to have him on. 2 weeks from now, Andrew Eftimitis, who's been chiming on tonight a lot, will be joining us, Panama Canal Report. Remember, we're doing the Gatun Transit. Jim Duffus will be joining us. David Cohen will be joining us, and Maritza Carzorla, right, Ricky? Milita. I always confused to get her first name wrong. Sorry, Milita. Milita, she's a BHS graduate, and she was worked for Marine Traffic Control, just recently retired. So the four of them will be joining us, and we're gonna do a Gatun Transit. Everything that Captain Andrew does on the ship, that David Cohen does on the boat, everything that Jim Duffus and the crew on the ground and the locks are doing, everything Marine Traffic Control is doing. So we're gonna learn everything that brought that ship through the canal zone back in the day. So I'm really excited to see that show. Also coming up this month, Richard MacArthur and Pedro Penalver are going to talk to us about moving back to Panama. What's involved there? Yeah, relocating from the real estate end of it, and then from there to do and see, from one of our fellow Zonians who's living it up right now. In fact, he just I think this weekend he was out in Taboga. So he's enjoying Panama for sure, man. That's going to be a fun show as well. So May is a jam-packed month for us, man. I'm excited for everything we got going on there. Ricky, what do you got going on this month, man? Just get us out of here, man.
Well, guys, listen, again, thank you very much for all you that participated with us. We had a good crowd, and we do appreciate it. Thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. Until next week, stay tuned.
Yes, please do. Enjoy it, guys. Don't forget, the link was there. I will be posting it on the Facebook channel, SCN Canal Zone. If you haven't seen it, the Al Sprague interview back in, I believe it was in September, was an amazing interview. It was a long interview, but it was great. You learn who the Zonian Al Sprague was, the artist as well, but the Zonian growing up and all those really cool adventures that he had there. So don't forget to check that out. And again, guys, thank you everybody for tuning in as usual on Friday nights. Have an awesome weekend. Happy Acquisition Day, guys. Take it easy, everybody.